Chapter 4768. The crowd nodded their heads in agreement. Although they had no idea why the culprit would do such a thing, it was the only logical way for the culprit to target all the disciples of the East Continent. You mean the culprits are those chefs? Lu Ziyu narrowed her eyes. She still felt that something was wrong, but since so many people agreed, she could only follow their train of thought and continue asking. It's possible, but the possibility is very small. They are all top-notch experts of the Heavenly Island. Poisoning their food is worse than killing them. Not to mention that their families are in the Eastern Continent College. There is no reason for them to do so. Ren Zhongyuan pinched his chin and analyzed objectively. That's right. They have little contact with us East Continent disciples. They shouldn't have the motive. Besides, if they really had the intention, they could have done it on the way to West Island. Why wait until now? Yi Xiaotian echoed. Looking at the two of them echoing each other coldly, Lin Yi could roughly guess what was going on. They had led the other's train of thought into their rhythm. Next, they would probably target him. In that case, who is it? Other people can't enter the kitchen without permission, so there shouldn't be a chance to poison the food. Lu Ziyu shook her head. The kitchen was not a place that could be easily sneaked in. No, the rest of us really don't have the chance to poison the food. Only one person meets this condition, and that is the person responsible for moving the food today. As long as we catch this person, all the problems will naturally be solved. Ren Zhongyuan revealed his fox's tail as expected. The person who moved the food today? Lu Ziyu frowned slightly. The rotation of work was arranged by special disciples. She really didn't know the specific division of labor. She immediately looked at the disciple and asked, "Who is it?" The disciple took out the name list and glanced at it. His expression changed and he said, "It's Lin." In an instant, everyone's eyes fell on Lin. They were shocked and angry. These people didn't know Lin Yi and had no enmity with him. Who would have thought that this guy would deliberately poison people as soon as he got on the boat? Lin? How could it be Lin Yi? Lu Ziyu was also shocked. She felt that something was wrong from the beginning, and now it was true. That's right, it's him. I saw him moving food before. Very soon, a disciple stood out to testify. Yes, I saw it too. Many other disciples chimed in. This matter was not a secret to begin with, and more than half of the East Continent disciples present had seen the scene of Lin Yi carrying the food. The crowd was agitated, and Lin Yi suddenly became the target of public criticism. He was instantly pushed to the opposite side of everyone. Under the threat of death, they could only grab onto this life-saving straw. Only by locking onto Lin Yi, the real culprit, could they get the antidote. Humph, what a wild ambition. We were kind enough to give you a lift, but not only are you not grateful, you want to poison all of us to death. What are your intentions? Ren Zhongyuan looked at Lin Yi coldly, and the corner of his mouth unconsciously revealed a strange curve, as if his scheme had succeeded. There's no need to waste words with this scum. Hurry up and capture him to force out the antidote. We can't afford to delay any longer. What do you say, Deputy Dean Lu? Yi Xiaotian encouraged the crowd. Yes, capture the real culprit and execute him. Hurry up and force out the antidote. Everyone was anxious as expected. Anyone who discovered that there was a poison gas like a ticking time bomb in their body would probably find it hard to maintain their rationality. Lu Ziyu couldn't help but be in a difficult position. She obviously didn't believe that it was Lin Yi who poisoned them, but now the situation was out of control. If she didn't do something, it would be hard to say what would happen next. Deputy Dean Lu, don't tell me you still want to protect him at this time? You are the leader of our East Continent's diplomatic mission. Don't tell me you really intend to disregard the lives of so many people? Are you determined to associate with this kind of wild ambition scum? Ren Zhongyuan sneered when he saw this. Yesterday, not only Lin Yi made a fool of him, but this old woman was also an accomplice. Of course, he had to make things difficult for her. Today, he had to force her to personally take action against Lin Yi. Lu Ziyu glared at him, but she couldn't directly refute at this time. Otherwise, so many East Continent disciples would really explode. To a certain extent, she had already been held hostage by public opinion. Even if she raised all kinds of doubts, it would only make everyone think that she was protecting Lin Yi, which would aggravate everyone's dissatisfaction. Wait. At this time, Hui Yudi stood out and looked at Ren Zhongyun coldly. You said that Lin Yi is the real culprit, but what about the motive? He has no enmity with so many of us, why would he poison us? That's right. Lin Yi is our West Island son-in-law. You guys are framing him without any evidence. Do you really think our West Island is easy to bully? Ning Xuefei spoke up at the same time. Although her strength wasn't great, her status was there. She had been influenced by Ning Shangling since she was young. At this moment, she really had the aura of a superior. When everyone heard this, they instantly flinched. They weren't stupid. Lu Ziyu could see that there were many doubtful points in this, and so could they. They were so agitated purely to save trouble. If Lin Yi happened to be the real culprit, then they could directly get the antidote. If they couldn't get it, at most, they would just wrongly accuse Lin Yi. As for whether Lin Yi was dead or not, it didn't matter to them at all. But now, facing Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei's attack, they didn't dare to be the first to speak up. Once they wrongly accused Lin Yi, they would have to pay the price. For a moment, everyone's gaze turned to Ren Zhongyuan again. The motive is very simple. Didn't you guys say that I flipped his table yesterday? Humph, then he must be harboring hatred in his heart. His strength is much weaker than mine, so he can only use despicable tricks like poisoning. Now, what else do you guys have to say? Ren Zhongyuan retorted with a cold smile. Ridiculous. Even if Lin Yi really wanted to take revenge on you, he only needed to poison you. Why did he have to make things so big and poison everyone? Isn't that asking for trouble? Hui Yudi questioned. That's right. Our Lin Yi isn't as stupid as some people. He didn't use such a low-level framing trick. There's no technical content at all. Ning Xuefei curled her lips and said. Chapter 4769. Aren't you framing me? I'll fucking kill you. More than half of the East Continent's disciples on this ship are my people, and they're naturally on my side. Even if it's a false testimony, I can force you to die, ha. Sophistry. Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei were so angry that their faces turned red when they heard these words. Only Lin Yi himself, who was the person involved, was calm and unperturbed, without any signs of panic. You may know a person for a long time, but you don't know his heart. Junior Sister Yudi and young Miss Ning, I advise you to stay away from this despicable person. Otherwise, you won't even know when you'll be killed by him. Who knows, you might even be helping him count the spirit jades after being sold by him. Ren Zhongyuan sneered. Vice Dean Lu, you've already said it like this. Isn't it inappropriate for you to drag it on and not state your position? Could it be that you're really determined to protect this brat? Yi Xiaotian seized the opportunity to force her to abdicate. He and Ren Zhongyuan had obviously discussed this beforehand. One was responsible for targeting Lin Yi, while the other would not give Lu Ziyu a chance to react, attacking from both sides. Right? Regardless of whether or not this kid is the real culprit behind the poisoning, as long as we capture him and use the soul-searching technique on him, it will be fine. The lives of so many of us, in Vice Dean Lu's heart, could it be that they are not as important as a single kid? The others echoed in unison. Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei were instantly anxious. The soul-searching technique caused irreparable damage to one's divine sense. Even if one reached the nascent soul stage, the soul-searching technique would cause great damage to one's vitality, and they might not be able to recover even after tens of years. These people clearly wanted to destroy Lin Yi. Lu Ziyu couldn't help but be in a dilemma. These people had been incited by Ren Zhongyuan and Yi Xiaotian, and even with her authority, it was very difficult to suppress them. This matter was really troublesome. However, at this moment, Lin Yi finally stood up. He still had a calm look on his face as he looked at Ren Zhongyuan and said, You insist that I'm the one who poisoned them. Other than your own mind full of wild imaginations, do you have any substantial evidence? I remember that we have to check our belongings before boarding the ship. But now we have poisoned the ship on such a large scale. I want to ask, how did you manage to smuggle so much poison on board without anyone knowing? His words rendered everyone speechless. Poisoning required poison, but to say that so many poisons could be casually brought up was an insult to everyone's intelligence. This was a top-notch ancient warship. Anyone who boarded the ship would not only have to be inspected by the crew, but they would also have to go through a special detection array. Under such tight security, it was basically impossible to sneak across the sea without being noticed. This was indeed unjustifiable. You can hide this from others, but unfortunately, you can't hide it from me. Ren Zhongyuan, on the other hand, had a card up his sleeve. He looked at Lin Yi proudly and grinned coldly. You still don't know, but my father is not only a 7th-grade alchemist, but he is also a famous pharmacist in the East Continent. Unfortunately, I happened to learn a little from him. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows non-committally. Under normal circumstances, it is indeed very difficult to smuggle poison on board. But I have just carefully studied everyone's symptoms of poisoning and discovered that it coincides with a strange poison from the legends. The name of this poison is heart-piercing anemone. Ren Zhongyuan said confidently. Heart-piercing anemone? This is a poison from the sea? Lu Ziyu was instantly shocked. That's right. This kind of heart-piercing anemone is very common in the sea. However, very few people go into the sea, so they don't know much about this thing. Only a very few medicinal scriptures have records of it, and I just happened to see it in my father's study. Ren Zhongyuan smiled proudly, looked at Lin Yi and said, So, you don't need to bring poison with you at all. You only need to catch some heart-piercing anemone from the sea when everyone is unprepared, then grind it into powder and put it in their food. This thing dissolves when it comes into contact with water, and it is colorless and tasteless. No one will notice it at all. This deduction sounded reasonable and well-founded, but he was actually exposing what he had done in front of everyone. He was just putting the blame on Lin Yi. Heart-piercing anemone was his unique method. If he didn't say it himself, not many people would know about this poison. After all, the sea was the territory of the sea beasts. No matter how amazing an apothecary was, it would be very difficult for them to come into contact with the sea creatures, let alone carefully study them. After hearing this, everyone came to a realization, and they looked at Ren Zhongyuan with gazes of worship. As for Lin Yi, his identity as the real culprit had been indirectly confirmed. Out of everyone present, only he had the conditions and opportunity to poison the sea creatures. No matter what, this guy was the #1 suspect. There was no way he could escape this point. That still doesn't prove that it was Lin Yi who poisoned it. You know so much about it. Who knows if you were the one who fished up the heart-piercing anemone to frame Lin Yi? Ning Xuefei refuted without hesitation. That's right. From beginning to end, it's all your words. None of us know about the heart-piercing anemone, and only you know about it. Doesn't that mean that you are also the biggest suspect of poisoning it? Hui Yudi said coldly. Junior apprentice Sister Yudi, don't be blinded by this despicable person. As the old saying goes, the onlooker sees more clearly. Between me and him, who is more suspicious of the poisoning, I believe everyone here can see clearly. Ren Zhongyuan looked like he had suffered a great grievance. He suddenly turned to everyone and said, Me and Lin Yi, who do you think it is? Of course it's Lin Yi. More than half of the East Continent's disciples here had to act according to his instructions. At this time, it was obvious who to choose. Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei were secretly anxious. If this went on, these people would force Lin Yi to use the soul-searching art on him again. At this time, Lu Ziyu waved her hand at everyone and finally expressed her stance. Lin Yi is indeed suspected of poisoning the heart-piercing anemone. However, before I find the evidence, I will only put him under surveillance. If the two of you want to make a move on the West Island's prince consort, feel free to give it a try. Her words made Ren Zhongyuan and Yi Xiaotian, who had deliberately created this scene, speechless. Fuck, this old woman was too much of a hindrance. However, cursing silently was one thing. Lu Ziyu's absolute strength was there for all to see. If they dared to jump out at this time, they would only be cannon fodder. No one was a fool. Everyone could only choose to shut up resentfully. Very well. Since all of you feel that we can't act rashly, then properly think of a way to cure the poison. As for the matter of investigating the truth, We'll talk about it after. Without any conclusive evidence and only relying on wrangling like this, everyone might as well just wait for death. Lu Ziyu's tone was extremely unyielding. Lin Yi looked at Lu Ziyu, a little astonished. He had not had much contact with this big shot of the academy before, especially after the incident where she forced Hui Yudi and Ren Zhongyuan to make a deal. His impression of her was not very good, but now, it had changed. Chapter 4770. As for when the crowd's anger subsided, they would split up and target Ren Zhongyuan and Lu Ziyu so that they wouldn't dare to act rashly, and in the blink of an eye, the scene of a group attack would disappear. Ren Zhongyuan was extremely unwilling, but now that things had come to this, he couldn't continue to incite the crowd to target Lin. If he really angered Lu Ziyu, he wouldn't be able to bear the consequences either. Deputy Dean Lu, I can't do anything about it. However, if I can detoxify everyone, you can't possibly continue to protect this kid, right? The poisoning must be investigated to the end. Ren Zhongyuan immediately bargained. You can detoxify? Lu Ziyu glanced at him. That's right. Don't forget that I'm a 5th grade alchemist. Since it's confirmed that it's the heart-piercing sea anemone's poison, I have a way to refine an antidote. As long as everyone takes it, they'll naturally be safe and sound. Ren Zhongyuan said proudly. Once he said this, everyone instantly became excited again. All of them looked at Ren Zhongyuan with fervent gazes. As long as he could refine an antidote, it would be equivalent to saving all of their lives. Then how many can you refine? Lu Ziyu asked with a frown. This antidote is slightly complicated, but there are various materials stored on the ship. I can refine one in 2 hours. Ren Zhongyuan still had a smug look on his face. The heart-piercing sea anemone's poison was not low, and the corresponding antidote had reached the 5th grade. For him to be able to refine one in 2 hours was already a very shocking speed. 1 in 2 hours? Then how long can so many people last? Lu Ziyu instantly frowned. There were close to 100 disciples from the East Continent present. Wouldn't Ren Zhongyuan have to wait for 100 hours? And this was on the condition that he didn't sleep or rest. Now, only 4 hours had passed, and there were already 3 people who couldn't hold on any longer. Not to mention 100 hours, looking at the way things were going, it wouldn't even take 20 hours for everyone to die. Ren Zhongyuan was stunned. Previously, he had been thinking of framing Lin Yi, thinking that after he killed Lin Yi, he would stand up and detoxify the poison. However, he had neglected this crucial point. How was he going to detoxify the poison of so many people? At this moment, the faces of everyone present instantly turned deathly pale. It wasn't easy for them to grab onto the last life-saving straw, but in the end, it was really just a straw. It couldn't save their lives at all. If this went on, wouldn't they only be waiting for death? Looking at Ren Zhongyuan's dumbfounded expression, Lu Ziyu, who had been holding on to a bit of hope, was completely speechless. They had already left the West Island for more than a day, and it was too late for them to return now. This was really a big deal. With Lu Ziyu's strength, he was confident that he could suppress the poisonous gas, but the others could not. The longer this dragged on, the more disciples from the East Continent would be affected by the poison. By then, there would definitely be large groups of people dying. With so many people dying at once, Lu Ziyu would be too ashamed to answer to the various academies in the East Continent after he returned. With such a big stain on him, it would basically be impossible for him to be entrusted with any important tasks in the future. Everyone sighed, and the already depressing atmosphere became filled with despair. Lu Ziyu's expression also became grim. Once people were forced into a corner, they would be able to do anything. Once someone took the risk out of desperation, it would be impossible for the matter today to end peacefully. At this moment, Lin Yi suddenly smiled and said, "Why don't you let me give it a try?" What? Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Ren Zhongyuan looked at Lin Yi as if he was looking at an idiot and sneered in disdain. Give it a try? Do you know what you're saying? My detoxification pill is a 5th grade medicinal pill. What are you going to use to try it? Don't tell me you're also a 5th grade alchemist? 5th grade alchemist? Then I'm really not one. Lin Yi shook his head calmly. However, Before Rin Zhongyuan could let out a complacent laugh, he said in a calm tone, "But if it's just a 5th-grade medicinal pill, I can refine 100 of them in 2 hours. It shouldn't be difficult for me to detoxify everyone." The crowd was in an uproar, and everyone looked at Lin Yi in disbelief. Being able to refine 100 5th-grade medicinal pills in 2 hours, what exactly was this guy's background? After being stunned for a moment, Rin Zhongyuan pointed at Lin Yi's nose and stomped his feet, shouting, "Impossible! You're freaking spouting nonsense. Refining 100 5th-grade medicinal pills in 2 hours, even a 7th-grade alchemist like my father can't do it. Do you think you're a god? You're really daydreaming. Hee, no matter how much you say, it's useless. Anyway, everyone doesn't have a choice. It's like trying everything in a hopeless situation. What's the harm in letting me try? Who knows, I might really succeed." Lin Yi smiled unconcernedly. The others didn't think much of it, but Lu Ziyu's eyes lit up when she heard it. Out of everyone present, only she, Hui Yudi, and Ning Xuefei knew Lin Yi's background. This guy was an amazing person who could refine 8 profound thunder pills in a day. Although refining 100 5th-grade medicinal pills in 2 hours sounded very exaggerated, to Lin Yi, it might not really be impossible. Even if he couldn't do it, it was still better than Rin Zhongyuan, who could only refine 1 pill in 2 hours. Only if Lin Yi came out to help, the many East Continent disciples present would have a chance of survival. Otherwise, they could only sit there and wait for death. Since that's the case, then the 2 of you will refine as many pills as you can. Everyone's lives are in the hands of the 2 of you, so you must do your best. Lu Ziyu immediately decided. Lin Yi naturally had no objections to this, while Rin Zhongyuan looked at him coldly. Today, because of Lu Ziyu's protection, he couldn't kill this brat. However, since things had developed to this point, it wasn't like he couldn't make use of it. His eyes turning, Rin Zhongyuan ordered someone to bring over a pen and paper. He wrote down some ingredients on it in a flamboyant manner and said coldly to Lin Yi, "I don't care what you're planning, brat, but since things have developed to this point, I won't say anything else. This is the antidote pill formula." Lin Yi stretched out his hand to receive it. Although antidote pills generally had a general template, there was no absolute omnipotent antidote pill in this world. If one wanted to truly detoxify the poison, they had to find the right medicine for the illness. In the past, Lin Yi had never even heard of the heart-piercing anemone. If he wanted to refine the antidote, he could only rely on the pill formula Rin Zhongyuan provided. However, Rin Zhongyuan suddenly took back the pill formula and snorted coldly, "This is a 5th-grade pill formula, something that can't even be bought in the market. You want to take it away so casually? Don't you know how to behave yourself?" Lu Ziyu was about to speak, but he was stopped by Lin Yi's gaze. He looked at Rin Zhongyuan calmly and said, "Then what do you want? Don't tell me you want me to fork out spirit jades to buy it?" Chapter 4771. What's the condition? Lin Yi asked indifferently. "It's very simple. Didn't you say that you could refine 100 pills in 2 hours? Then let's have a competition. We'll set a time limit of 2 hours. I'll refine 1 and you'll refine 100. Whoever can't do it will never be able to meet junior sister Yudi again. How about it? Do you dare to compete?" Rin Zhongyuan sneered. He didn't believe that Lin Yi could refine 100 pills in 2 hours even if he was beaten to death. He could use this matter to force this kid to slap his own face. Hee, your method of comparison is really weird. I'm glad you could say it." Lin Yi smiled faintly and nodded immediately. "Fine, I've been kind since I was young. Then I'll satisfy your pretentious act for once. I'm just afraid that you won't admit it when the time comes." Humph, once a word is said, it can't be taken back. Ren Zhongyuan threw the pill formula to Lin Yi without another word, for fear that Lin Yi would go back on his word. No matter how he looked at it, the result was destined. Still not admitting it? Only a fool would not admit it. The others looked at each other, but Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei didn't look worried for Lin Yi at all. They had seen Lin Yi refine pills with their own eyes. Regarding this matter, they were more confident than Lin Yi himself. All right, everyone help prepare the materials and let Lin Yi and Rin Zhongyuan refine pills separately. Under Lu Ziyu's command, the group of East Continent disciples immediately volunteered to help the two of them. This matter concerned their lives. At this time, everyone wanted to be diligent and perform well. Otherwise, what if there were not enough antidote pills in the end and they fell behind? After returning to his room and asking someone to send the materials over, Lin Yi closed the door and officially began refining pills. Although it was his first time refining this kind of antidote pill, this mere 5th-grade pill was really not difficult for the current Lin Yi. Moreover, the godly pesticide cauldron had just been upgraded by Han Jingjing. Refining grade 5 pills was a piece of cake for her, especially now that she could refine a large number of pills. In the past, she could only put in 10 sets of ingredients at a time. Now, she could put in 30 sets at a time. Everyone waited nervously. In less than 2 hours, there was no movement from Ren Zhongyuan's side, but Lin Yi had already pushed open the door and left. "How is it?" Lu Ziyu hurriedly went up to greet him personally. When she thought of the wager between Lin Yi and Ren Zhongyuan earlier, she felt a little nervous. Earlier, she really shouldn't have had so many reservations and should have directly stepped forward to reject this wager. After all, if Lin Yi didn't manage to refine 100 pills, what would happen if he really couldn't meet her disciple in the future? Lin Yi smiled, took out a rather large box, and handed it to her. He said with a smile, "Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. 120 pills should be enough to cure everyone's poison. You can take this and distribute it to everyone." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone was stunned for a moment. Then, they suddenly burst into an uproar. All of them were overjoyed, and the gazes they used to look at Lin Yi were as if they were looking at a monster. In less than 2 hours, he had produced 125th-grade pills. Was this guy really human? Without caring about anything else, everyone immediately snatched a detoxification pill and consumed it. After the medicinal effects were digested, they discovered that the faintly discernible poisonous qi in their bodies had indeed completely dissipated. This time, even their last bit of apprehension was instantly dispelled. All of them gathered around to express their gratitude to Lin. Putting everything else aside, he had, after all, saved their lives. Previously, they cooperated with Ren Zhongyuan to squeeze Lin Yi. That was because they felt that Ren Zhongyuan was their backer, and Lin Yi was indeed suspected of poisoning them. But now, it seemed that Lin Yi's backer was more than 10,000 times thicker than Ren Zhongyuan's. Who cared about who poisoned them? This guy was at least a 5th-grade alchemist. With such a strong backer, if they didn't seize the opportunity to curry favor with him, they would definitely be fools. In the face of these East Continent disciples who were like grass on the fence, Lin Yi, Hui Yudi, and Ning Xuefei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Although the East Continent Academy was a gathering place for geniuses, no matter where it was, there would be no lack of such fence-sitters. If you were strong, they would be friends. If you were weak, they would be enemies. Only the weak would understand the hardships of survival. But this was also good. At least it was better than everyone supporting Ren Zhongyuan. Then, if Ren Zhongyuan wanted to fan the flames and let them target Lin Yi, it would not be as easy as just now. Of course, not everyone was a fence-sitter. The faces of people like Yi Xiaotian and Yao Jieli were really wonderful. After taking the antidote refined by Lin Yi, they felt like they had eaten a fly. They felt sullen in their hearts, but they had to pinch their noses and swallow it. After everyone had successfully detoxified the poison, after a while, Ren Zhongyuan pushed the door and walked out with bloodshot eyes. In the crowd, he saw Lin Yi at a glance, and his heart suddenly thumped. But when he saw that Lin Yi's hands were empty, he immediately raised his tail. "Huh, I said that you were pretending to be mysterious. 100 pills in 2 hours? Now you don't even have one. If I were you, I would have jumped into the sea and committed suicide. How would you still have the face to stand here? There is really no one who is as thick-skinned as you." Ren Zhongyuan seized the opportunity to ridicule. "Oh, then how about you? How many have you refined?" Lin Yi asked faintly. "Not more, not less, just one. I am a man of my word. Even if there is only one, it is much better than a liar like you who says 100 but can't take out one in the end." Ren Zhongyuan laughed proudly, raised the antidote pill high, and said to the crowd, "Whoever wants this antidote pill, first come, first served. The next one will have to wait for another hour. Ren Zhongyuan thought that the moment he called out, everyone would rush over like a flock of ducks. Perhaps even Hui Yudi would recognize his true colors and jump into his embrace. But in the end, it wasn't just Hui Yudi that he had been thinking about all this time. Even the others weren't moved at all. At this moment, Ren Zhongyuan suddenly felt that something was wrong. Why was everyone looking at him with strange eyes? There was not the slightest excitement of seeing a life-saving straw. Instead, they felt like they were looking at an idiot. In particular, even the expressions of Yi Xiaotian and the others were abnormal. It was as if they were desperately trying to remind him of something, but he couldn't understand the specific meaning for a while. Ren Zhongyuan couldn't help but be a little confused. What kind of situation was this? Junior Sister Yudi, I will make the decision to give this one to you first. I think you should understand my intention, right? Although Ren Zhongyuan muttered in his heart, he still put on a look of infatuation and passed through the crowd. He wanted to personally give the antidote pill to Hui Yudi and take the opportunity to get intimate with her. Chapter 4772. Impossible? Ren Zhongyuan instantly jumped up. The more experienced he was, the more he knew the difficulty of this. This kind of thing was impossible no matter how he thought about it. But when he carefully examined everyone, he discovered that it was just as Lu Ziyu said, these people were all safe and sound. This is impossible. Absolutely impossible. Ren Zhongyuan was deeply affected, mumbling to himself as if he had gone mad. Just when everyone thought he was going to have a mental breakdown from the huge blow, this guy suddenly shouted, I know the truth. It must be like this. It must be like this? Everyone looked at each other. I've said it before, refining 100 5th-grade medicinal pills in 2 hours, even a 7th-grade alchemist like my father can't do it, let alone this kid. He can take out 120 antidote pills at once. That can only mean one thing, he's long prepared these antidotes. Ren Zhongyuan hooted loudly. That's right, what Brother Ren said makes sense. He can do something that even a 7th-grade alchemist can't do. Doesn't everyone feel that this matter in itself is a huge loophole? Lin Yi, I think you've been outsmarted by your own cleverness this time, taking out the evidence on your own initiative, hee. Yi Xiaotian immediately chimed in. The other East Continent disciples didn't join in the uproar. Since they'd already recognized that Lin Yi was a big shot, then they wouldn't rashly offend Lin Yi because of this kind of thing. After all, the poison had already been cured, and as for who the real culprit was, it really wasn't too important. Moreover, anyone with a bit of brain could see that there was something fishy about this. From the beginning to the end, the things that Ren Zhongyuan and Yi Xiaotian said were all very far-fetched. They all had very obvious loopholes, but no one was willing to expose them face to face. However, there was still no lack of Ren Zhongyuan's underlings among the crowd, and they immediately hooted, strongly requesting Lu Ziyu to severely punish the real culprit. Lu Ziyu couldn't help but frown again. She thought that Lin Yi would be fine after he detoxified the poison for everyone, but she didn't expect this guy to be so sharp-tongued, and still not let go of Lin. It was like a piece of dog skin plaster. The problem was that for those who didn't understand Lin Yi's strength, taking out 120 antidote pills in less than 2 hours was really a loophole. They couldn't let Lin Yi perform it again in front of everyone, right? For a moment, Lu Ziyu did not know how to defend Lin. At this moment, he heard Lin Yi chuckle, looking at Ren Zhongyuan as if he was looking at an idiot. Are you stupid? Do you really think that other people's brains are as useless as yours? If I wanted to harm someone, would I need to go through so much trouble? Then how did you do it? Ren Zhongyuan sneered. In the face of absolute power, all the so-called plots and schemes were nonsense. If I really wanted to harm people, this would do. As Lin Yi spoke, his figure suddenly flickered, and he suddenly appeared beside Ren Zhongyu. He stretched out his hand and lightly patted him. Ren Zhongyuan suddenly turned pale with fright. Lin Yi's speed was too fast and too sudden, and he didn't even have time to react. He couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat, but fortunately, this kid didn't dare to kill people in front of them. Otherwise, he would definitely suffer a big loss this time. However, before he could finish rejoicing, he shockingly discovered that there was actually an additional wave of extremely strange shinchi in his body. It was rampaging back and forth in his acupoints and meridians. Although it was not that terrifyingly destructive, he still could not avoid extreme pain. This time, Ren Zhongyuan could no longer endure it. In front of everyone, he rolled on the ground in pain, crying out loudly. Everyone was shocked, and they couldn't help but look at Lin Yi with even more awe. Just now, they thought that he was a super alchemist, but they didn't expect that the West Island's son-in-law was also so powerful. He clearly looked like he was only in the middle stage of nascent soul. But he could easily play with Ren Zhongyuan in the palm of his hand. This was a consummate nascent soul expert who had won a place in the Golden Stage Academy competition. Yi Xiaoyan and the others were even more shocked. Looking at Ren Zhongyuan rolling on the ground without a care for his image, they were helpless. Not only did they not dare to step forward to help, but they were so scared that they kept retreating, not daring to take even half a step closer to Lin. Look how simple it is. I don't have any enmity with the other people on this ship. Even if I wanted to do something, I would just kill you. Why would I need to go through so much trouble by poisoning everyone? Lin Yi said lightly. What did you do to me? Ren Zhongyuan screamed in pain, looking at Lin Yi, who was very close to him, with a terrified expression. He could only look at the people around him with a pleading gaze. If this pain continued, even if there weren't any fatal injuries in his body, he would definitely have a mental breakdown. However, everyone didn't even dare to take a step closer, let alone have the ability to save him. The only one who had the ability, other than Lin Yi himself, was probably Lu Ziyu, the big shot of the academy. Unfortunately, Lu Ziyu was currently filled with disgust towards him. As long as he didn't kill anyone, she wouldn't make a move to stop him at all. Instead, she felt very satisfied. This guy was getting more and more outrageous, and he should learn from his mistakes by suffering a bit. You're a pharmacist and an alchemist yourself, do you still need to ask me for such a small matter? Lin Yi shook his head in amusement. Looking at Ren Zhongyuan rolling on the ground, he shrugged and spread his hands. Isn't your father a 7th-grade alchemist? Go back and get him to help you take a look. You won't die for a while anyway, and since your father is so awesome, he definitely has a way. Ren Zhongyuan was instantly infuriated. This time around, he didn't manage to put on an act, and instead got himself killed. Originally, he could still put down his pride and ask Lu Ziyu for help, but with Lin Yi's words, he was completely unable to say it. No matter how painful it was, he could only endure it himself. Seeing that Ren Zhongyuan was in so much pain that his face was pale, looking like he was exhaling more than he was inhaling, Lu Ziyu started to feel a little worried. She couldn't help but cast a questioning glance at Lin. After all, if Ren Zhongyuan really died like this, it would be quite a big problem. Not only would she be punished, but the crucial point was that Lin Yi would also become the target of public criticism. The Ren clan's influence was really not to be underestimated. Lin Yi gave her a reassuring look. He had only given the other party a stream of 5 elements killing chi that didn't have any destructive power and wouldn't cause any substantial fatal injuries. Of course, with the characteristics of 5 elements killing chi, having such a thing running around in one's body would definitely be extremely painful, and ordinary people wouldn't be able to endure it. Does everyone still feel that I'm the real culprit behind the poisoning? Lin Yi swept a glance at everyone present. Seeing that everyone had different expressions, he continued to speak calmly. Firstly, I'm the one responsible for transporting the food. This is indeed true, but since everyone has been poisoned by the heart-piercing sea anemone, it's a creature from the bottom of the sea, and I've never had the chance to go on a mission at sea before, so how could I have come into contact with it? Chapter 4773. Because of the ancient warship's array formation, any sea beasts with a bit of strength and intelligence would flee far away, so there was no danger in going to the sea. One of the tasks of the shift workers was to go fishing in the sea. This was what it meant to rely on the sea to survive. Only the sea had the freshest and most abundant ingredients. Without special permission, no one could go to the sea without permission. As Lin Yi said, The prerequisite to fishing out a poisonous creature like the heart-piercing sea anemone was to go to the sea for a task, and he clearly didn't have this condition. Secondly, even if I could really fish out the heart-piercing sea anemone and use it to poison everyone, would I use the antidote to save people? And specially prepare over 100 antidote pills in advance? Is there something wrong with my head? Lin Yi glanced at Ren Zhongyuan, who was rolling on the ground. You just want junior sister Yu Dai to think that you're stronger than me. You despicable, shameless villain. Even now, Ren Zhongyuan was still stubborn. He knew that if he changed his words and begged for mercy now, he would be completely ruined. He might as well grit his teeth and persevere, treating it as a ruse to gain people's trust. If it was just to prove that I'm stronger than you, a simple move would be enough. Why go through so much trouble? Do you think I'm a fool, or do you think everyone here is a fool? You're from East Continent Academy, after all, but you're not even good at lying. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. Everyone else was also shaking their heads. Ren Zhongyuan's words were getting more and more ridiculous. Anyone with a brain wouldn't think like that. Even his loyal subordinates were too embarrassed to continue echoing him at this time. It was embarrassing to say it out loud. What if people really thought they were fools and laughed at them in the future? Now that things have come to this, I believe everyone has nothing to say. Not only is Lin Yi not the real culprit, he's also your savior. Do you still have any objections? Lu Ziyu immediately went along with the flow. Of course, no one dared to stand out. As for Ren Zhongyuan, who was rolling on the ground, he still wanted to say a few more words. However, with Lu Ziyu's aura suppressing him and the 5 elements killing intent rampaging through his body, he was in so much pain that he couldn't say anything. Since that's the case, men, carry him away. This matter ends here. Lu Ziyu threw a glance at Ren Zhongyuan and said with a deep meaning in her words, "Let me remind you. Stay in your room and recuperate. If there's nothing important, don't come out casually. In particular, don't create any trouble for me. I'm the person in charge of the East region's diplomatic mission. Even if there was no evidence, he could still act first and report later. You'd better remember this." This time, anyone with a discerning eye could see that the real suspect of poisoning was not Lin Yi, but Ren Zhongyuan, who was the first to bring up the heart-piercing anemone. In all likelihood, this guy was the thief who cried, "Stop the thief," and wanted to kill Lin Yi with hatred in his heart. It was a pity that she could not find any concrete evidence. No matter how suspicious Ren Zhongyuan was, Lu Ziyu could not do anything to him for the time being. She could only use this excuse to put him under house arrest, so that he could not continue to stir up trouble. Since Lu Ziyu had already said so, this matter was considered settled. Although Yi Xiaotian and the others were unwilling, they could only follow Lu Ziyu's words and carry Ren Zhongyuan back to his room. After all, this old woman's fierce reputation in the East region was not just for show. If she was really forced to be ruthless, none of them would have a good ending. The group of East region disciples dispersed one after another. Lin Yi cupped his hands toward Lu Ziyu and said gratefully, "Thank you, Vice Headmaster Lu, for helping me out of this predicament. Otherwise, I really wouldn't be able to explain myself today." This was the truth. Although Lin Yi had 100 ways to expose Ren Zhongyuan's framing, he had to first have the chance to do so. If Lu Ziyu had not helped him earlier, he would not even have had the chance to concoct pills and detoxify the poison. He didn't even give them the chance to concoct pills and detoxify the poison, so it was even more impossible for anyone to listen to him. With Ren Zhongyuan and Yi Xiaotian fanning the flames from behind, they might have already been forced to fight. "You've got it backwards. I should be the one thanking you properly. If it weren't for you, I don't know how this matter would have ended." Lu Ziyu shook her head with some lingering fear. Fortunately, Lin Yi could really concoct so many detoxification pills. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. This time, Ren Zhongyuan got away with it. It's really too hateful. If this was West Island, even if there was no evidence to prove that he poisoned someone, just the crime of framing would have been enough to put him in jail. Ning Xuefei said angrily. "Yeah, this matter was obviously done by Ren Zhongyuan. Master, are we really going to let him off just like that?" Hua Yudi was also somewhat unwilling. She hated Ren Zhongyuan to begin with, and this time, he actually caused such a big incident to frame Lin. This made her even more furious, and she wished she could execute this bastard on the spot. Without irrefutable evidence, we can't touch him, especially on this ship. Lu Ziyu sighed helplessly. She didn't want to spoil Ren Zhongyuan and his group of people. Unfortunately, although she was the person in charge of Dongzhou's diplomatic mission, her identity on this ancient battleship was still a guest. Those crew members would give in to Ren Zhongyuan, but they wouldn't give in to Lu Ziyu. Lin Yi looked at Ning Xuefei and Hui Yudi's indignant expressions and couldn't help but be amused. He said indifferently, "Hee, actually, there's no need. That guy has already been punished. Look at him, he's in so much pain." Hearing this, the two women immediately smiled. When they thought of how Ren Zhongyuan was rolling on the ground just now, their anger was vented. Even Lu Ziyu covered her mouth and laughed. A wicked person would be tormented by another wicked person. Ren Zhongyuan had really kicked an iron plate this time. After being carried back to the room by Yi Xiaotian and the others, Ren Zhongyuan still had some backbone. He howled in pain as he chased all these people out. After all, his current appearance was really too embarrassing. With Yi Xiaotian and these underlings looking at him like this, how could he still be arrogant in the future? Detoxification. There must be a way to cure the poison. But Ren Zhongyuan was hysterical alone in the room. Similarly, a wave of vital energy was flowing everywhere in his body. He subconsciously thought that this was a strange poison like the heart-piercing sea anemone. He was a pharmacist and an alchemist, and he even had a high-grade detoxification pill with him. No poison could trouble him, absolutely not. Without hesitation, he swallowed the detoxification pill. At the same time, he clenched his teeth and endured the intense pain. He circulated his mental cultivation method to dispel the vital energy. 2 hours passed. 4 hours passed. He tossed and turned like this until midnight. Only then did Ren Zhongyuan completely collapse, because all of this was completely useless. That strange, ghost-like vital energy could not be dispelled at all. It was simply inexplicable. Not only was it as indistinct and difficult to capture as the heart-piercing sea anemone's poisonous gas, even if one could really catch it by chance, there was no way to dispel it. Generally speaking, whether it was the poisonous gas or the vital energy, once it could be successfully locked on, there would always be a way to dispel it little by little using one's own mental cultivation method. It was just a matter of how fast it was. Chapter 4774. However, Ren Zhongyuan discovered that this common knowledge was suddenly useless. It was because the stream of essential qi in his body was extremely strange, and simply could not be reasoned with. One moment, it was of the metal element, the next moment, it was of the wood element, and after a while, it became of the water element. When he finally made up his mind to refine it, it suddenly became of the fire element. There was no pattern to it at all, so how could he possibly neutralize it? Ren Zhongyuan was about to be tormented to the point of going crazy. He was already completely helpless against this strange stream of essential qi. The only thing that he could rejoice about was that up until now, there had not been any fatal injuries in his body. It was just that he would occasionally feel extreme pain, and when it did not flare up, it would be fine. He could still take a breather, and it seemed like he would not die anytime soon. However, Ren Zhongyuan still did not give up. Since he was unable to refine it, he could only place all his hopes on medicinal pills. Not only those legitimate antidotes, but any medicinal pills that had the slightest possibility of neutralizing it were consumed in one go. Even if they could not completely neutralize that strange stream of essential qi, it was good enough if they could only slightly reduce the pain. To anyone with common sense, Ren Zhongyuan's method was simply playing with his life. The consequences of consuming medicinal pills recklessly were often even more miserable than being poisoned. However, he had already lost his rationality from the intense pain and could not care about these things. And what made Ren Zhongyuan overjoyed was that among the medicinal pills he had consumed recklessly, there was actually one that could be of use. It was a medicinal pill known as the turtle breath pill. As the name suggested, it could allow one to enter the state of turtle breath. However, after he consumed it, he did not enter the state of turtle breath, but the circulation of essential qi in his body stopped. In this way, that strange stream of essential qi seemed to have been suppressed as well. As long as this stream of essential qi did not move about recklessly, he would not feel any intense pain. The only side effect was that he similarly could not cultivate, much less circulate his mental cultivation method. This was originally a harmful medicinal pill, but he had used it as an antidote, and by a stroke of luck, he had used it correctly. By the time Ren Zhongyuan finished tormenting himself, the sky outside was already bright. After resting for a while, he immediately wanted to go out and take a stroll. At the very least, he had to act as if he had successfully neutralized that stream of essential qi, so as to prevent others from looking down on him. Senior Marshal Brother Ren, it's better for you to stay in the room and recuperate in peace. This was specially instructed by Vice Headmaster Lu. Don't make things difficult for us. 2 disciples from the East Continent blocked his path at the door. No matter what, Lu Ziyu was a big shot in the academy. After all, there were still many disciples who obeyed her orders. Ren Zhongyuan was so angry that his face turned green. In his anger, the Zhenqi in his body immediately showed signs of stirring, startling himself. He pointed at the 2 people at the door and was speechless for a long time. This ancient battleship was his territory, but he was actually being placed under house arrest in his own territory. Who could tolerate such a thing? Alright. Ren Zhongyuan gritted his teeth and said 3 times. If it was before, he would have already stepped on these 2 bastards. But now, he could only endure it. He said coldly, "Fine, I won't go out, but it's not a problem for others to come and see me, right? Go find Xiaoyan for me." The 2 disciples from the East Continent exchanged a glance. It was true that Lu Ziyu had not said such words. This Ren Zhongyuan was a person with a strong background, and they could not offend him too much. They immediately nodded and agreed. After a short while, Yi Xiaotian came to the room. Seeing Ren Zhongyuan lying lazily on the bed, he could not help but smile. "Brother Ren, you're really relaxed. Looks like there's no problem now?" It's just temporarily suppressing the poison gas. If I'm really fine, I'll be fine. If I'm really fine, would those 2 dogs at the door still dare to stand there?" Ren Zhongyuan shook his head in annoyance. "Sigh, now everything is decided by Lu Ziyu. After yesterday's incident, the others don't dare to make a sound. We can't do anything about it." Yi Xiaotian could only spread his hands helplessly. If the opponent was just Lin Yi, it would be fine. But now, a single word from Lu Ziyu could crush them to death. What else could they do? "I do have a way to suppress that old woman. How about this? Send a letter to me, and everything will be resolved." Ren Zhongyuan pinched his chin and smiled. The corner of his lips once again revealed the proud smile from yesterday. At noon, the group of disciples from the East Continent, including Lu Ziyu, Lin Yi, and the others, were all eating in the canteen in 2s and 3s. Just then, there was a sudden commotion at the entrance. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound and was instantly shocked. A heavyweight uninvited guest had actually arrived. Captain Okuda. Hearing the low exclamations from the surrounding people, Lin Yi sized up the newcomer from afar. This was the first time he had seen this legendary captain with his own eyes. He had thick brows and big eyes, and walked with a majestic gait. He looked like a heroic middle-aged man. To this ancient battleship, Lu Ziyu and the East Continent's diplomatic group were only temporary guests. The real controllers were its original crew, and the person in the lead was this Captain Okuda. However, the canteens of the East Continent's disciples and the battleship's crew were separate. This Okuda had never come to this canteen before. What was going on today? "Captain Okuda has graced us with your presence. We have been disrespectful." Lu Ziyu suppressed the suspicions in her heart and stood up to welcome him. The other party was the actual controller of the ancient battleship. Regardless of strength or status, he was not below her, the vice principal of the Morning Pride Academy. Even Lu Ziyu had to be polite to him. This captain has come without notice. I hope Vice Principal Lu won't blame me. Come. Everyone, sit down and continue eating. As Okuda spoke, he took the lead and sat down, not treating himself as an outsider at all. However, he was indeed the host here, and there was nothing to criticize about that. "Captain, you are a rare guest. May I know why you have come?" Lu Ziyu replied in a neutral tone. "Oh, I heard that there was some trouble here yesterday. Many disciples from the East Continent were poisoned, so I came to see everyone and see if there's anything I can help with." Okuda laughed heartily. "Thank you for your concern, Captain. The poison of all the disciples from the East Continent has been successfully neutralized. Everything has returned to normal." Lu Ziyu smiled faintly. "That's good. You are my distinguished guests. If anything were to happen to you, this captain would not be able to absolve himself from the blame." Okuda laughed, then asked, "Huh? Why don't I see Zhong Yuan? This brat's father is an old friend of mine. It's rare for me to come here, but I didn't even greet him. Vice Principal Lu, can you get someone to call him over for a chat?" Chapter 4775. At this point, Lu Ziyu could no longer keep Ren Zhongyuan under house arrest. He could only instruct, "Go and call Ren Zhongyuan over. Just say that Captain Okuda is here to visit him." A short while later, under everyone's gaze, Ren Zhongyuan arrived at the canteen in a pompous manner. His footsteps were filled with joy, showing off his prowess. "Uncle Okuda, I'm really sorry for disturbing you. Your nephew apologizes." Ren Zhongyuan did not even look at Lu Ziyu and the others. He walked to Okuda's side and sat down as if there was no one else around. It seemed like the two of them had a pretty good relationship. What's there to apologize about? As an uncle, isn't it only right for me to visit my nephew? Okuda patted Ren Zhongyuan's shoulder and gestured to everyone. "Everyone, don't just stand there. Come, let's eat." Ren Zhongyuan looked smugly at Lin Yi, who was sitting opposite him. His face was filled with provocation, and he even made a dangerous gesture of slitting his neck. He did not think much of Lu Ziyu at all. After all, on this ancient warship, Lu Ziyu was no match for Okuda. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. He glanced at Okuda without batting an eyelid. With such a powerful backer suddenly appearing, things were going to be a little difficult to handle. It seemed like Okuda would definitely not let the matter rest and would definitely make use of this opportunity to stir up trouble again. As expected, they had only eaten a few mouthfuls when Okuda suddenly said, "Vice Dean Lu, other than coming here to visit the East Continent's disciples, there's another important matter I want to discuss with you." "Captain, feel free to speak your mind." Lu Ziyu exchanged glances with Lin Yi and the others, his heart skipping a beat. "It's like this. We have a lookout position on the warship, responsible for monitoring dangerous situations. I don't think I need to explain the importance of this position. Without a lookout, we won't be able to continue sailing at sea. Unfortunately, our original lookout has fallen ill. In order to not waste time at sea, I want to choose one of you East Continent's disciples as a substitute. Of course, the prerequisite is that they have sufficient sailing experience," Okuda said meaningfully. "This." Lu Ziyu was slightly taken aback and was about to ask everyone who had sailing experience. However, before she could say anything, she was interrupted by Okuda Dam. "I heard that the treasure ship from the North Island encountered pirates in the sea fog when it was on its way to the West Island. At the critical moment, a disciple named Lin Yi stepped forward bravely and personally took the helm to avert the danger. I think this young man is good. I'll choose him," Okuda Ba insisted. As soon as he said that, everyone's gazes instantly focused on Lin. Some people sympathized with him, and of course, there were also people who rejoiced in his misfortune. Everyone could see that Okuda Ba was standing up for Ren Zhongyuan this time, and his target was Lin. Looking at Ren Zhongyuan's complacent smile as if he had succeeded in his scheme, Lin Yi remained unmoved. Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei, on the other hand, were secretly anxious, and both looked towards Lu Ziyu for help. This so-called danger lookout was definitely a pit of fire. Once he agreed, Lin Yi would definitely suffer greatly. Captain Okuda Ba, Lin is a new disciple, and he's also the prince consort of the West Island. Isn't it a little inappropriate to suddenly let him take up such an important position? Why don't you consider other disciples? Lu Ziyu argued. Vice Dean Lu, Don't blame me for not giving you face. On this battleship, my orders are above everything else. As he spoke, Okudaba's aura suddenly changed, and an overwhelming pressure instantly pressed down on everyone's heads. Lin Yi was the first to bear the brunt of it, and when he heard Okudaba's cold voice, he said, "He doesn't want to do it? Very well then. Men, throw him overboard." Everyone's countenances instantly paled. Just a moment ago, he had been laughing heartily, yet in the blink of an eye, he wanted to throw someone overboard. This captain really changed his attitude faster than flipping the pages of a book. "Stop!" Lu Ziyu's countenance changed, and she similarly unleashed an overwhelming aura to stand against him. Although she was not as strong as him in this place, Lin Yi was someone whom she had acknowledged long ago. It wouldn't be so easy for him to take Lin Yi away. The atmosphere suddenly became extremely tense. Once these two big shots were to stand against each other, the deterrence and destructive prowess would be unimaginable. Although there were no weaklings among the people present, they would really not be able to withstand such repercussions. Just the pressure from the aura alone was enough to make them unable to withstand it. At this moment, Lin Yi suddenly stood up, and his gaze landed on Okudaba's face in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. He said calmly, "Hold on. Isn't it just a lookout? No problem. Since it's a job for the entire battleship, then it's also for ourselves. I'll accept this job." The moment he said this, everyone present was astonished. Ren Zhongyuan even smirked coldly when he heard this. Even at the brink of death, he still did not forget to elevate himself. At this moment, he was still thinking of putting on an act. What a fucking fool. Good, very good. You have ambition. Okudaba instantly retracted his aura, pointed at Lin Yi, and laughed out loud. The captain, like young people with guts. However, I'll say this first. Once you're on the lookout, you'll be treated the same as the other crew members. To me, the sea is a battlefield. If you really make any mistakes, you'll be dealt with according to military law. These words frightened Ning Xuefei and Hui Yudi. This was basically forcing Lin Yi into a dead end. Usually, even if he made some mistakes, nothing could be done about it. After all, he was a temporary substitute from the East Continent. However, if he were to be dealt with according to military law, all his paths of retreat would be blocked. At that time, a single word from Okudaba would be able to take Lin Yi's life, and even Lu Ziyu would not be able to stop him. Lu Ziyu's brows furrowed tightly, and she was just about to find an excuse to take back this job of causing death. However, it was a pity that Okudaba did not give her the chance to do so. After he finished speaking, he stood up and left, leaving behind a string of hearty but vicious laughter. Hurry up and go to work after lunch. We're all counting on you, the lookout, to protect and escort us. Don't make any mistakes, ha! Rin Zhongyuan laughed complacently as well. As expected, once a great god like Okudaba took action, someone like Lin Yi did not even have the slightest ability to retaliate. Just a few words from him were enough to send him into the fire pit. This feeling could only be described with one word: awesome. Master, what should we do now? Hui Yudi anxiously asked Lu Ziyu for help. There was still some room to turn things around now, but once Lin Yi really went up to the lookout, it would only be a matter of a few words for him to be taken advantage of. By then, everything would really be too late. Chapter 4776. Wait a minute, Deputy Dean Lu, thank you for your kindness, but you don't have to be so troublesome. It's just a dangerous situation, lookout. I'm experienced in this kind of thing, and it's not a problem. Lin Yi stopped her with a faint smile. Really? Lu Ziyu looked at him suspiciously, wanting to say something but stopping on second thought. She had heard that Lin Yi controlled the treasure ship of the North Island to get out of danger, but in the eyes of most people, including her, it could only be attributed to Lin Yi's good luck. After all, everyone had their own specialties. If he was not a really experienced old shipwright, he couldn't be a dangerous situation lookout at all. You'd better not force yourself. With your ability, you just need to monitor the dangerous situation, and I believe there's no problem. But they obviously want to find fault with you, and it's hard to guard against them, Hui Yudi said worriedly. Yeah, if you must go, take me with you. I'll go wherever you go. Ning Xuefei said decisively. Fei Fei, don't mess around. I'm just going to be a lookout, it's not as serious as you think it is. Plus, they won't let you go up to the lookout tower. Lin Yi laughed when he saw the girls follow the chicken. If she marries a chicken, if she marries a dog, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a dog, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a dog, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a dog, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a dog, then so be it. Right, Fei Fei, you really can't go. Your identity is too sensitive, and no one dares to let you go to the watchtower. I won't allow it either. You'd better stay with us. Lu Ziyu stopped her immediately. If something happened to Lin Yi, she would be sad, but it was only limited to personal feelings, and it wouldn't have too much impact on the overall situation. But Ning Xuefei was different. Once the successor of West Island had an accident here, West Island and Dongzhou State would definitely fall out with each other instantly. Then West Island and Dongzhou State would definitely fall out with each other instantly. By then, thousands of people would die because of this. This was related to the overall situation, and there was no room for any mistakes. In fact, Lu Ziyu believed that even Okuda Dam, who deliberately targeted Lin Yi, would never dare to let anything happen to Ning Xuefei. Otherwise, in order to appease the anger of West Island, he, the captain, would definitely be pushed out as a scapegoat, and there would be no chance for him to survive. But Ning Xuefei still held Lin Yi's hand tightly. He wanted to say something more. There are no buts. There's no room for discussion on this matter. Your mother entrusted you to me. I definitely won't let you take the risk, Lu Ziyu interrupted. Seeing Ning Xuefei's helpless expression, Lin Yi smiled and patted her hand, comforting her. It's not like you don't know my strength. This small matter can't stump me. Don't worry, Fei Fei. Then, Ning Xuefei hesitated for a long time. He nodded helplessly and said, All right, I'll listen to you and Aunt Lu. However, if you're in danger, I'll be the first to rush over. Hee, the observation deck is not a guillotine. It's not that dangerous. Don't worry. Lin Yi laughed. After much persuasion, he finally managed to persuade Ning Xuefei. However, when he turned his head, Hui Yudi suddenly bit her lips and said, Fei Fei can't go. I'll go with you. Lin Yi was instantly speechless. He had finally managed to persuade one, yet another came. It was really asking for his life. He could only say helplessly, I'm going to monitor the situation, not to go on an outing. What are you going to do? I can help you, Hui Yudi said with a serious expression. Help me? How can you help me? Have you done this before? Lin Yi couldn't help but ask curiously. Not really. Hui Yudi thought for a while, then said, But my nose is very sensitive. I can more or less be of some use. Lin Yi suddenly didn't know what to say. This little girl's train of thought was really wild and imaginative. Which danger lookout relied on their nose to do their work? Helpless, Lin Yi could only turn to look at Lu Ziyu. He hoped that this master of hers would come forward to persuade her. In the end, he didn't expect Lu Ziyu to actually nod and say, All right. You go with Lin. Be careful. Pooh. Hearing that, Lin Yi instantly choked. Not only was Hui Yudi's train of thought unique, even her master was a kindred spirit. Indeed, like teacher, like disciple. Actually, the reason why Lu Ziyu agreed so readily was because she wanted to make it up to Lin Yi. Lin Yi and Ning Xuefei were both people that Ning Shangling had entrusted to her to take care of. In the end, because she wasn't forceful enough, Lin Yi ended up in danger. Letting Hui Yudi accompany him would at least be able to take care of him. On the other hand, it was because she could see through her precious disciple's thoughts, so she decided to help him. Hearing their conversation from afar, especially when he heard that Hui Yudi was going to accompany Lin Yi to the observation deck, Ren Zhongyuan, who was still feeling smug, was instantly enraged. He was clearly the one who pushed Lin Yi into the fire pit, so why did he inexplicably create a chance for him to be alone with Hui Yudi? The observation deck was high up, almost completely isolated from the people below, and no one would disturb them. Lin Yi and Hui Yudi were basically in a world of the two of them. How was this a fire pit? It was simply a land of gentle beauties. However, Ren Zhongyuan had no way to stop them. He could only grit his teeth and console himself. Go on. I'll let you see Lin Yi for another 2 days. In less than 2 days, this guy will be a dead man. After lunch, Lin Yi and Hui Yudi went to the crew's work area under the gazes of Lu Ziyu and Ning Shuifei. The first mate of this ancient warship glanced at the two of them. It seemed that Okuda had already informed him beforehand. He lazily reclined on a chair and asked, "Didn't you say that there's only one substitute lookout? Why are there two?" "This is my assistant," Lin Yi replied calmly. Hui Yudi insisted on coming along no matter what, and she even had Lu Ziyu's support. He had no other choice. "Assistant?" The first mate sized up Hui Yudi with a slanted gaze, and said with an evil smile, "What assistant? An assistant to liven things up at night? I have to say, it's quite boring up there. If you don't find something to do, you'll go crazy. Seeing that you're so pitiful, I'll be your assistant." These words caused Hui Yudi's face to turn red, and even Lin Yi felt a little embarrassed. He really hadn't thought about this. The observation deck is up there. You guys go up there yourselves. I don't need to explain the duties of this position, right? Report the dangerous situation in real time, and give timely and accurate instructions to avoid danger. If there's even the slightest mistake, hee. The first mate looked at Lin Yi with pity. The latter half of the sentence did not need to be said. It was nothing more than if he had something on them, Okuda would definitely take the opportunity to punish them. Because of Lin Yi's negligence, the entire ship's crew would be in danger, so it would be useless no matter who tried to explain. Military law was not something that could be casually said. Chapter 4777. Hee, what do you think? The first mate smiled but did not say anything. In fact, Okuda-ba's claim that the lookout was sick was pure nonsense. Even if Okuda-ba agreed to give such an important position to a layman, the other crew members would never agree to it. After all, who would dare to put their lives in the hands of a layman? The lookout was actually hiding on the backup lookout. Lin Yi was just a prank. No one would really take him seriously. Lin Yi and Hui Yudi turned around and went up to the lookout. It was the highest point. Standing there, they had the best view of everything. As long as the visibility was good enough, not only could they clearly see the ancient warship below, but they could also see the sea within a radius of hundreds of miles. Of course, if there was fog, then there was nothing they could do. However, the weather these 2 days had been great. The sky was clear for miles, and there wasn't even a single cloud in the sky, let alone sea fog. Lin Yi and Hui Yudi were just enjoying the scenery. The scenery here was unique, and they couldn't see it from other places. It wasn't a wasted trip. They did not encounter any danger during the past 2 days. Naturally, Lin Yi did not need to issue any evasive orders. He felt quite comfortable watching the scenery and chatting with Hui Yudi. Hui Yudi also enjoyed this. Being able to enjoy the sea breeze while snuggling up with Lin Yi was the most wonderful thing she could think of. However, she also knew that this would not last for long. Even if Lin Yi could not let Okuda-ba catch him, the two would have to be separated when they reached the East Continent. It was unknown if they would even see each other again in the future, let alone spend time together. After nightfall, the sky was filled with stars, and the sea was dotted with stars. All this dreamy scenery set off the atmosphere of the two's world especially warm and romantic. The two, who were already snuggling up to each other, could not help but feel a little charming. Hui Yudi seemed to have thought of something. Her cheeks blushed as she called out softly. "What happened?" Lin Yi turned his head to look at her, then hurriedly turned his head back, not daring to look again. At this moment, under the beautiful night sky, Hui Yudi's temperament was both pure and charming. The two intertwined to form a strange temptation. Even with Lin Yi's self-control, he almost couldn't control himself. "The poison on my leg seems to be relapsing again." Hui Yudi bit her lips, lowered her head, and said shyly, Can you help me suck it again?" Lin Yi was stunned. The poison had been sucked clean a long time ago. How could it suddenly relapse? Under his gaze, Hui Yudi's face turned even redder. Her originally fair neck became an alluring shade of crimson. She urged in a low voice, "Hurry up, Lin Yi speechlessly swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He finally understood what Hui Yudi was hinting at. This girl couldn't have been reminded by the first mate's joke, right? The atmosphere fell into silence. Facing Hui Yudi's cute and shy expression, Lin Yi suddenly felt a trace of tenderness in his heart. He forcefully suppressed his instinctive impulse and said with difficulty, "Yudi, I can't give you any promises. After we go to the eastern continent we might— I don't care." Hui Yudi used her hand to cover Lin Yi's mouth. The two of them were only a finger's distance away from each other. They could both feel each other's hot breath. Their breathing and state of mind were already in chaos. Just as Lin Yi was about to say something, Hui Yudi suddenly made an extremely bold move. She actually reached out and pressed Lin Yi's head to the bottom of her skirt. After tonight, there might not be another chance like this. As a girl, she had already thrown caution to the wind. Smelling the familiar fragrance of the other party's body, Lin Yi's heart was in a mess. She had already done this, what should he do? At this moment, an extremely urgent warning sound came from the jade pendant on his chest. Lin immediately quivered and hurriedly stopped Hui Yudi's bold move. In a hurry, he glanced at the sea in front of him and hurriedly activated the sound transmission array on his hand and shouted, "Change direction. There's danger." At this moment, Okuda Dam and the Real Danger Lookout were on another backup lookout. When they heard Lin Yi's shout through the sound transmission array, they were both stunned. "There's danger?" In shock, the two of them hurriedly looked around carefully. Although visibility was not high at night, with the help of the starry sky and the glowing creatures in the sea, they could still clearly see the situation within a few miles. Everything seemed calm and peaceful. "Danger my ass." The lookout and Okuda Dam looked at each other and angrily scolded, "It's a false alarm. This kid really doesn't know anything. What a fucking scam." Okuda Dam's expression was also a little ugly. According to his original plan, he had planned to use Lin Yi's ignorance. If he really encountered danger, he would definitely not be able to detect it in advance, let alone give a timely and accurate warning. Although they were on the backup lookout, if the situation was not particularly critical, they would not make a sound. This way they could use their own trick to trick Lin Yi. After all, for a supergiant like the ancient warship, a small danger would not cause any damage at all. It could be easily crushed. This way, not only would there not be any accidents, but it would also give them an excuse to punish Lin Yi. In the end, the two of them did not expect such a situation to occur. There was clearly no danger, but this kid Lin Yi was shouting in the voice transmission formation, causing them to be worried for nothing. This was simply a false report. In the voice transmission formation, Lin Yi was still repeatedly warning them, but there was no response from below. Everyone knew that the real danger monitoring the situation was the second lookout, which was now a stage. Before the second lookout spoke, no one would care about him. At this moment, Okuda Dam's voice came from the voice transmission formation. He said coldly, "What are you shouting for? Do you know how much of a loss you'll bring to us if you make a wrong judgment? Once we deviate from the established route, it's very likely that we will hit the reef, and it will consume a lot of extra spiritual energy. It might even cause the formation to not have enough energy to gather. Can you bear the consequences? Quickly change the direction. There's danger ahead." Lin Yi ignored him and continued to shout. Although the others on the warship could not hear him, every place with a voice transmission formation, including the control room, could hear his voice. "Kid, how dare you shout here? Do you know what the punishment is for lying about a military situation? Do you really want to die?" Okuda Dam was instantly enraged. Chapter 4778. He wouldn't get angry because of such a small character, but now he really wanted to kill this kid. Seeing that the people below were still indifferent, Lin Yi shook his head speechlessly. Ignoring Okudaba's threat, he gathered his vital energy and roared, "Everyone, be on guard. Protect yourselves." His voice was like a clap of thunder. With the help of various voice transmission formations, Lin Yi's voice was heard throughout the ancient battleship. Not only could the crew hear it, but even the disciples of the East Continent in the living area could hear it. All of a sudden, the entire battleship was in chaos. After shouting, Lin Yi could no longer care about anything else, let alone the enraged Okuda-ba. He protected Hoyuri and escaped from the observation deck. The observation deck was a good place to look at the scenery when there was nothing going on, but when there was danger, the observation deck was often the first to suffer. Lin Yi did not have the habit of holding on under a dangerous wall. When Okuda-ba saw this scene from the second lookout tower, he flew into a rage. He had clearly heard his warning, but this brat still dared to create chaos so brazenly. Now, he even wanted to escape. This was intolerable. Even if it wasn't for Ren Zhongyuan, he would definitely tear this brat into pieces. In his rage, Okuda-ba stood on the top of the second observation deck and released his aura. In a trance, even the sky seemed to change color. This time, he planned to take down Lin Yi personally and publicly punish him as a warning to others. However, just as Okuda-ba was about to launch an attack, the official lookout on the second observation deck suddenly had a change of expression. He exclaimed, "Captain, this is bad. There's a group of sea beasts ahead." What? Okuda-ba was so shocked that he staggered and quickly looked at the sea in front of him. Everything was pretty much the same as before. The surroundings were still calm and peaceful, and there were no signs of surging waves or the so-called horde of sea beasts. The only thing that was slightly strange was that the sea in front of them was pitch black, with not a single ray of light to be seen. Okuda-ba did not react for a moment. He was not a lookout, so he was not that sensitive to these clues. However, he was an expert, a giant-level super expert. Without hesitation, he instantly released his divine sense. At this time, without the interference of the sea fog, with Okuda-ba's strength, his divine sense could cover the sea tens of miles away. This time, his expression suddenly changed. There really was a group of sea beasts. 20 miles away, an extremely large group of sea beasts was approaching at a rapid speed. There were at least hundreds of sea beasts, and their speed was unparalleled. Okuda-ba was shocked. He had been sailing on the sea for hundreds of years and had been a captain for dozens of years. However, he had never seen such a terrifying group of sea beasts. Every sea beast here was at least at the original infant stage. Profound ascension stage beasts could be seen everywhere. There were even several mountain opening stage beasts. What was even more shocking was that the group of sea beasts was rushing directly towards the battleship. It did not seem like they were just passing by. Instead, they were directly targeting the battleship. What was going on? As the ultimate weapon of the endless sea, the ancient battleship was set up with the highest level of beast-frightening array. Normally, no sea beasts would dare to approach within 100 miles. Even the sea beasts at the mountain opening stage would not dare to provoke them. But why did it suddenly fail this time? In the blink of an eye, the group of sea beasts had shortened from 20 miles away to 10 miles away. Their speed was so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. The originally calm sea was already surging with waves, and in an instant, a monstrous wave was formed, crushing towards the huge ancient battleship. There was no time to think about it. Okuda-ba quickly returned to the number 2 lookout and shouted, "Everyone, listen up. Activate the defensive array, activate the offensive array, everyone, get ready for battle." At this time, it was impossible to dodge. Such a huge monster could not change its course so easily. Unless they reacted when Lin Yi gave the first warning, they would still be able to make it in time. With the super powerful thrust of the battleship's power array, if they listened to Lin Yi's warning and changed the rudder to escape at full speed, they would be able to shake off the group of sea beasts as long as they could reach them at full speed. However, it was too late now. After hearing Okuda-ba's order, everyone on the battleship became more and more chaotic. The East Continent disciples did not know what to do. Fortunately, the original crew members were well trained. After a moment of confusion, they all went into battle positions. All kinds of defensive and offensive arrays were activated in an instant. Layers of colorful lights stacked on top of each other. It was a spectacular scene. Boom! The ancient battleship suddenly shook. This was the first wave of sea beasts' attack. No one knew why these sea beasts would do such a suicidal action. In the face of such a huge ship like the ancient battleship, Even the nascent Soul Stage sea beasts could not pose any threat to it. Even those powerful profound ascending stage sea beasts could only wear down the battleship's defensive array. They could not even attack the battleship itself, let alone cause any damage. The real threat was the few mountain opening stage sea beasts that were mixed in the huge group of sea beasts. Once they started to attack with full force, especially after their weakness was tested, it was hard to say how long the battleship's defensive array could last. Okuda-ba quickly retreated back to the command room. Although he was shocked, he still appeared calm at this time. All kinds of orders were issued to every crew member in an orderly manner. His calmness greatly influenced everyone. They gradually got rid of their panic and their morale soared. Lin-Yi and Huiyuri had also sneaked into the command room. Seeing Okuda-ba's performance, they could not help but secretly nod. A person who could sit in the position of the captain could not be useless. Okuda-ba also noticed Lin-Yi and Huiyuri. He frowned and was about to chase them away. However, when he thought of his warning just now, he immediately swallowed his words. "Captain, the first wave of sea beasts' attack has ended. There are about 40 to 50 nascent soul stage sea beasts. The defensive array is undamaged." A familiar voice sounded in the transmission array. Lin-Yi could tell that it was the lazy first mate from before. It seemed that he had gone to take command. Chapter 4779. Roger. Everyone responded in unison. The view of the command room was not as good as the observation deck, but it was already the second best place in the entire warship. Moreover, the sea beasts were already very close. At this time, there was no need to look from afar. Standing in the command room, one could clearly see the sea beasts in front of them. After the first wave of cannon fodder test ended, the sea beasts finally began to move. This time, there were hundreds of sea beasts, and nearly half of them were profound ascending stage sea beasts. Each of them had a suicidal attack, and they desperately rushed towards the ancient warship. This situation made Lin-Yi feel a little strange. At the nascent soul stage and profound ascending stage, sea beasts' intelligence was already very high. It was not strange that the weak were prey to the strong, but they actually launched a suicidal attack. This was too unbelievable. "Kid, today's situation is not normal. I feel that a big guy is targeting you." At this time, the ghost's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. "Big guy? How big is it?" Lin quickly asked. His first thought was that the giant electric eel and the 5 poison dragon were super existences. If the opponent was really a terrifying sea beast that was above the sea-splitting stage, then today's situation would be really dangerous. Even the ancient warship might not be able to protect them. It's not as big as you think, but it's not small either. If the command is good, the chances of winning are 50 to 50. The ghost laughed with interest. Lin couldn't help but look at Okuda-ba. He hoped that this guy could withstand it. Otherwise, if the ancient warship was really broken or even sunk, then it would be all over. Boom! The warship suddenly shook again. Everyone's face changed, including Okuda-ba. The first impact just now was only a slight shake, but the feeling this time was obviously different. Not only was the impact force far more than 100 times, but it seemed that the sea beasts had also found a flaw. There was only one wave of probing attacks before, but this time, the impact was continuous, and it was getting more and more intense. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked. If this continued, the consequences would be unimaginable. Something's wrong. These bastards have someone commanding them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to find the connecting point so easily. Damn bastards. Okuda-ba's face turned ashen. With the level of the ancient battleship's defensive formation, it was enough to easily block the life-risking attacks of the mountain-opening stage sea beasts. However, it wasn't truly flawless, because with the enormous tonnage of the battleship, it was impossible for any single defensive formation to completely cover it. The only way was to stack multiple defensive formations on top of each other to achieve the effect of complete coverage. However, in this way, the defensive strength of the entire battleship would inevitably be uneven. Among them, the defensive strength of the connection point was the weakest. Although it could still block the all-out attacks of the mountain-opening stage sea beasts, A flaw was ultimately a flaw. If the sea beasts were allowed to continue attacking like this, there was a possibility that the battleship would be overturned. This discovery really made everyone shudder with fear. Such a huge group of sea beasts was already very frightening. If there was a mastermind behind the scenes who could see through the connection point with a single glance, just the thought of it was enough to make one's hair stand on end. Prepare the attack formation. Okudaba suddenly ordered in a deep voice. Everyone was shocked, but their spirits were lifted. They excitedly rubbed their palms together and got into position. The amount of spiritual chi needed to activate the attack formation far exceeded that of all the defensive formations combined. Furthermore, the huge commotion it created could attract powerful sea beasts from all directions. Therefore, under normal circumstances, it wouldn't be activated easily unless it was a matter of life and death. Although it wasn't a matter of life and death yet, if they couldn't quickly stop the attack of the sea beasts, the defensive formation would be destroyed sooner or later. Instead of sitting on the ground and waiting for death, it was better to put everything on the line. This guy was really decisive. Lin looked at Okudaba in surprise. He then turned his gaze to the sea in front of him. At this time, all kinds of attack formations were being prepared. The entire battleship was like an unparalleled ancient beast, emitting a terrifying pressure that could destroy heaven and earth. As if they were frightened by the pressure of the attack formation, some of the nascent soul stage sea beasts at the front lines suddenly stopped attacking. It seemed like they had the intention to retreat. They all desperately retreated as if their fear of death was no less than that of humans. However, before everyone could let out a cry of joy, an extremely cruel scene unfolded in front of them. These nascent soul stage sea beasts that were scared off were instantly torn into pieces by the sea beasts behind them. Not a single one of them was spared. The entire sea was filled with the smell of blood that soared to the heavens. Even the night sky was dyed red. Everyone was so shocked that they couldn't speak for a long time. Because of this cruel and inexplicable smell of blood, the sea beasts became crazier and more hysterical. Not only did they not have the slightest intention of retreating, they became even more ferocious. Even the few mountain opening stage sea beasts mixed in with the sea beasts also joined in the attack. Just now was only the second wave of attack. With the well-trained team under Okudaba, they could at least calmly deal with it. However, now it suddenly became a fight to the death. The whole situation suddenly went out of control. Attack. Target the mystical ascending stage sea beasts. All teams attack freely. Okudaba immediately ordered. The nascent soul stage sea beasts could not affect the defense formation at all. The opponent's main force was the mystical ascending stage sea beasts. As long as they could be killed, their chances of winning would be greatly increased. Roger. Listening to the unified reply in the sound transmission formation, Lin only saw a dazzling scene in front of him. Dozens of light beams that were visible to the naked eye instantly disappeared into the sea beasts. It seemed to be silent, but the next moment, Lin suddenly opened his eyes wide, unable to hide the shock in his eyes. Wherever the light beam passed, all the sea beasts instantly turned into a cloud of blood mist. The dignified mystical ascending stage sea beasts did not even have the slightest strength to resist. They did not even have the time to dodge. As for the surrounding nascent soul stage sea beasts, they could not even be counted as cannon fodder. Looking at the hellish sea of blood in front of him, looking at the huge group of sea beasts roaring in the blood sea, Lin could not help but take a deep breath. His heart was filled with incomparable shock. This was the invincible warship that galloped in the endless sea. In just one wave of attack, half of the mainstay mystical ascending stage sea beasts were killed. When this invincible warship showed its ferocious claws, even the endless sea was no longer so daunting. Just like now, people here were cheering, it had become a crazy playground. Chapter 4780. Morale was greatly boosted, and all the offensive arrays were quickly preparing for the second wave of attack. However, just as they were about to launch another massacre without any suspense, the mountain opening stage existences that had been hiding among the sea beasts suddenly broke out of the water and revealed their true faces to everyone. Everyone instantly cried out in surprise. At this moment, there were a total of 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts that had suddenly appeared. Deep sea mad shark, netherworld ghost mother, hooking soul fish, thousand-legged tyrant crab, and humpback mountain whale. Every one of them was a famous overlord of the sea. Encountering any one of them would be a disaster for human cultivators. Ordinary treasured ships couldn't withstand their attacks. Fortunately, this was an ancient warship. But even an ultimate weapon like the ancient warship could not help but feel pressured when facing 5 overlords of the sea. Everyone, including Okuda-ba, felt a little breathless. Don't worry about them, kill the mysterious ascending stage first, kill them all. Okuda-ba suddenly reacted and yelled at the sound transmission array. Only by killing all the profound ascending stage sea monsters could they slowly deal with the 5 overlords of the sea. Otherwise, once they got into a heated battle, those profound ascending stage sea monsters would definitely destroy the defense array bit by bit and become the last straw that broke the camel's back. This was the most correct response, but unfortunately, before Okuda-ba could finish his sentence, a giant figure the size of a mountain had already slammed into the warship. With a loud bang, the ancient warship was actually knocked to the side by a few inches. Such a force was simply unimaginable. Humpback whale. Okuda-ba gritted his teeth and said the name of this giant monster. This was the largest existence in the sea. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that every humpback whale could move mountains and overturn seas with just a casual move, because they themselves were moving mountains. Just the size of the humpback whale had brought unparalleled psychological pressure to everyone. But this was not the worst part. The worst part was the urgent report that came from the sound transmission array. Captain, this monster blocked the attack. We can't lock on to the profound ascending stage sea monsters. He's just a meat shield. When Lin-Yi heard this, he immediately felt that things were not looking good. They had just gained a slight advantage. As a result, the other side immediately blocked the humpback whale with its thick skin and flesh. It was obvious that this mountain opening stage sea beast was just a chess piece of the opponent. At this moment, everyone was looking at Okuda Dam. At this time, he had to make a decision quickly without any hesitation. His next order would directly affect everyone's life and death. With the humpback whale's thick hide, there was no need to fear it at all. Even if dozens of holes were blasted into it, that would only be scratching an itch. If they didn't fight back, they would immediately fall into a passive position. They could only take a beating and not fight back. No matter how strong the defensive formation was, it wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Stop the attack. Okuda-ba ordered. Captain, should we activate the 10,000-mile formation? The first mate's voice sounded from the sound transmission array. Everyone's eyes flashed and they nodded in unison. What's the 10,000-mile formation? Lin-Yi whispered to Huayudi. The 10,000-mile formation refers to 10,000 miles a day. It can increase the speed of the battleship to the maximum in the shortest time possible. This is the final trump card for escape. The price is that it will consume all of the ship's stored spiritual energy. At this time, the person who answered Lin-Yi wasn't Huayudi, but Okuda-ba. Lin-Yi couldn't help but look at him in surprise. This guy was clearly trying to trick him, but he still had the mood to answer his question. It was really strange. After saying this, Okuda-ba didn't look at Lin-Yi anymore. Instead, he frowned and fell into deep thought. The veins on his forehead bulged and cold sweat flowed. It was obvious that this was a difficult choice. The others didn't dare to breathe too loudly. The command room and all the other battle positions that were connected to the sound transmission array were extremely tense. Just as Okuda-ba had said, the 10,000-mile formation was the last trump card for escape. The 10,000-mile array was his final trump card for escaping. Once it was activated, there would be no more spiritual chi stored. Whether or not he could escape safely would depend on the will of the heavens. They don't have good intentions. If we don't fight, we'll be courting death. We can't escape. Lin-Yi suddenly said. He knew that with his status, no one would listen to him. If it was under other circumstances, he might not be willing to say this. Unfortunately, everyone was in the same boat. If the ship was destroyed, he, Ning Xuefei, and the others would be implicated. He had to think of a way to dispel this stupid idea. As expected, the surrounding people looked at Lin Yi with more disgust. This kid clearly didn't know anything, but he jumped out at such a critical time to disturb people's morale. They were facing 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts, and they even had the humpback whale as a meat shield. If they didn't escape now, were they going to wait for death here? Why? Unexpectedly, Okuda didn't fly into a rage. Instead, he turned to look at Lin Yi with a serious expression. He actually planned to seriously consider his opinion. Lin Yi was an outsider, but with the warning he'd given earlier, even if Okuda felt a little embarrassed, he'd acknowledged Lin Yi's strength in his heart. This wasn't the time for personal grudges, and they had to work together. If it's just these 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts, we should be able to escape even if it's a little troublesome. But what if the big guy we're facing isn't them? Lin Yi slowly glanced at everyone. Everyone was shocked. They immediately looked at each other in panic. This kid really didn't stop until he shocked them. The 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts in front of them were already giving them a lot of pressure. Could it be that there was something even more ferocious behind them? You noticed it too? Okudaba's rhetorical question made everyone even more shocked. It meant that even an experienced captain like him felt that there was another ferocious god behind them. Lin Yi couldn't help but look up to this guy. He only found out about it because of the ghost's reminder. He didn't expect this guy, whom he thought was a good-for-nothing captain, to be able to sense it too. As expected, no one who could sit in such a position was simple. I admit that you're not simple, but don't look down on me too much. Okudaba was very dissatisfied with Lin Yi's surprised look. He coldly snorted. I've been on the sea for more than 300 years, and I've controlled this ship for 75 years. Even if I haven't seen 100% of the battles on the sea, I've at least seen 80% of them. Although the scale of the sea beasts this time is larger than usual, if there's no one behind them, just these 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts dare to challenge the ship? I'll dig my eyeballs out and step on them. Chapter 4781. No matter what, they couldn't afford to panic. Otherwise, if they didn't have a unified opinion, it would be a fatal flaw. What you two mean is, even if we can get rid of these 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts, we can't get rid of the guy behind them? The first mate gasped. Everyone turned to look at Lin Yi and Okudaba. This was the question they wanted to know the most. I haven't seen the 10,000-mile formation before, so I can't comment. Lin Yi shook his head and analyzed, but since they dare to target our warship, they must be confident. After all, sea beasts at this level are not idiots. I don't know. My intuition tells me there's a 30 to 70 chance. Okudaba pinched his eyebrows and added, 30 for us, 70 for them. Everyone immediately fell silent. What he meant was that even if they used the 10,000-mile array, they would only have a 30% chance of successfully escaping. As for the remaining 70%, if they were caught, the result would be obvious. Without spiritual chi, there would be no array. Without the protection of the array, an ancient battleship would be nothing more than a pile of scrap metal. Not even a random nascent soul stage sea beast would be able to stop it. Since that's the case, there's no need to worry. There's only a 30% chance for everyone to gamble with their lives. Is everyone willing to gamble? Even if you stay and fight, your chances of survival are higher than this. Lin Yi said calmly. This sentence completely dispelled everyone's thoughts of escaping. Since running was more dangerous than not running, then why the hell would they run? These crew members were all experienced soldiers. Once they were forced into a desperate situation, their morale and ability were far beyond that of ordinary people. Just like at this moment, each and every one of them looked like they had been injected with chicken blood. They couldn't wait to find the sea beasts outside and fight them to death. None of them mentioned the 10,000-mile formation again. But since they want to play, then let's play with these ugly monsters. Okudaba suddenly roared and ordered without hesitation, listen to my command, activate the Starfall formation. Roger. All the crew members responded with a loud rumble. Even Lin Yi was startled by this sudden surge of adrenaline. He couldn't help but tug at Huayuti's sleeve and whispered, "What's the starfall formation?" "I don't know either." Huayuti shook her head. "This should be the core secret of the battleship, just like the 10,000-mile array." She was not a member of the battleship, just a temporary passenger. How could she possibly know such a thing? This is the ship's most powerful offensive formation. Just like the 10,000-mile formation, it's a trump card that requires all of the ship's spiritual energy reserves to be exhausted. However, the 10,000-mile formation is used for escaping, while the starfall formation is used for attacking. Okuda Ba took the time to explain. Then he looked up at the starry sky and said in a joyful tone, "Luckily, the weather tonight is good, giving us an additional 20% chance of winning." Lin Yi didn't understand what he was talking about, but he could roughly guess that this starfall formation had something to do with the weather. If he understood it literally, could it be that they wanted to make use of the stars in the sky? Okuda Ba didn't have the time to explain any further. He immediately ordered, "All teams, get into position. We only have 6 hours. After 6 hours, our spiritual energy will be depleted and we won't be able to do anything. Therefore, before dawn, we must kill all of these scum. After dawn, I will toast to each and every one of you." The crew members' voices were filled with a murderous aura, as if they were soldiers going out to battle. They would either return victorious or die on the battlefield. As they spoke, with the ancient battleship as the center, a monstrous wave of air that had never been seen before came crashing down. Without any warning, it created a huge wave that was tens of feet tall. The weaker original infant stage sea beasts were instantly blown away by the wave of air. Once they got serious, they wouldn't even have the qualifications to be cannon fodder. Lin Yi looked at the scene in front of him in shock. He wasn't sure if it was an illusion, but he felt as if the stars in the sky had suddenly become much brighter. Before, there were only stars in the sky, but now, they were as bright as lanterns, clearly visible. At the same time, what made Lin even more speechless was the table in front of Okuda Ba. Originally, there was nothing on it, but now, there was a dreamlike astrolabe. If one looked closely, they would realize that this astrolabe was 100% compatible with the stars in the sky. Let's begin. Aren't they using the humpback whale as a meat shield? Then let's destroy this meat shield and treat it as a greeting. Okuda Ba smiled sinisterly and ordered, "Lock onto the humpback whale, starfall array, release." As soon as he finished speaking, he moved his finger lightly on the astrolabe. When he touched the star, it suddenly shone brightly. Before Lin Yi could take a closer look, he heard a deafening explosion outside. An incomparably huge pillar of light descended from the sky. The night that was shrouded in darkness instantly became as bright as day. Everything in front of him was blinding white light. In the blink of an eye, the shocking white light quickly dissipated. Lin Yi looked at the scene in front of him and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The humpback whale that was like a mountain had actually been blasted into pieces by this white light. In the sea, all that could be seen with the naked eye was a small mountain of minced meat. Lin Yi couldn't help but swallow his saliva. A powerful sea overlord that was as powerful as the mountain opening stage was just gone in an instant. This was the ultimate killer move of the ancient warship, Starfall Array. Okuda Ba and the crew members were indifferent to this shocking scene, but the sea beasts outside were completely shocked. Not only the profound ascending stage sea beasts were trembling, even the deep-sea mad shark, nether mother, soul hookfish, and thousand-footed king crab, the 4 mountain opening stage sea beasts, unconsciously retreated a few miles. If they were alone, they might have retreated after witnessing the shocking scene of killing the chicken to warn the monkey. The humpback whale had the toughest skin and flesh among them. If even the humpback whale suffered such a fate, the 4 of them would only end up worse if they were hit by the white light. However, after they only retreated a few miles, they suddenly stopped at the same time. Each of them let out a shrill and horrifying roar. After struggling desperately for a while, they rushed back again. Every one of them had bloodshot eyes as if they had lost their minds. Their bodies exuded a terrifying aura of madness. The other profound ascending stage sea beasts were immediately bitten into pieces when they got a little closer. It seemed that they didn't distinguish between friend and foe. Chapter 4782. Acting all mysterious. Why hasn't that ghostly thing shown up yet? Ba-Okuda frowned as he stared at the sea in front of him. He wanted to find the culprit behind all this. If he could not kill that fellow as soon as possible and was only entangled with the 4 mountain opening stage puppets, he would definitely die this time. Pfft. Lin almost burst out laughing. He used his primordial spirit to communicate with the ghostly thing. Senior, this fellow is looking for you. Do you want to go out and greet him? The ghostly thing was speechless. It choked for a long time before saying, I'm afraid that I'll scare him to death if I go out. I'll leave this to you. The thing you've encountered this time is not simple. Speaking of which, it's related to me. Related to you? Is it a spirit beast? Lin Yi was shocked. That's not it. It's a real sea beast. Who told you that I can't be related to sea beasts? The ghostly thing pouted. Your family is really well connected. You even have relatives with sea beasts. I'm impressed. Lin Yi shook his head speechlessly. Then he said, what should I do now? Should I bring you to meet your relative? If you want to die, go ahead. I won't stop you. The ghost thing cackled. Putting aside the fact that the other party was a sea beast that had nothing to do with it, given its current state, even if it was a spirit beast, it wouldn't dare to casually recognize it as a relative. Who knew, it might end up becoming the other party's nourishment. What should we do? Can this starfall formation defeat your relative? Lin Yi asked. Its power is passable. However, you have to be the one commanding it to have a chance. Otherwise, I guarantee that they won't even be able to touch a hair. Once 6 hours are up, you'll all be waiting to die, the ghostly thing said disdainfully. Me commanding it? Lin Yi was stunned. He looked at Ba-Okuda, who was running around in circles, and shook his head. I'm not their captain. Why would they leave such a deadly task to an outsider like me? How is that possible? Unless they've lost their minds. Before this, Okuda Ba didn't like him and was waiting for him to make a mistake. Although his attitude had changed, it was impossible for him to hand over his command. If Lin Yi dared to say such a thing, he would be thrown out to feed the sea beasts. Jejia, I didn't ask you to ask for command right now. Wait until they've suffered and are at their wits' end, then you can ask for it. The ghostly thing laughed. All right then. Lin Yi nodded and looked at Oba-Okuda's next actions. At this moment, this guy seemed to have made his decision. Since it doesn't want to come out, then this captain will beat it out. Listen to my orders. His target was 4 mountain opening stage sea beasts. Starfall formation, release. As soon as Okuda Ba's voice fell, his 4 fingers gently stroked the light shadow astrolabe in front of him, and the 4 stars that were stroked once again shone brightly. Boom! 4 huge beams of light descended from the sky again, instantly blasting towards the 4 mountain opening stage sea beasts. The white light shone brightly, and huge waves soared into the sky. The momentum was so great that it shook the ancient battleship. Once again, Lin Yi felt a super shock that he had never felt before. As the light faded, Okuda Ba and the others stared at the sea in front of them nervously. However, this time, the result of the battle made all of them feel a chill in their hearts. The 4 mountain opening stage sea beasts didn't follow in the footsteps of the humpback whale as they had expected. Other than the 1,000-legged king crab, which was not much faster than the humpback whale, being blasted into pieces, the other 3 were all safe and sound. Regardless of whether it was the deep-sea mad shark, the nether ghost mother, or the soul-hooking strange fish, their speed in the sea was ghostly. The humpback whale and the 1,000-legged king crab couldn't avoid the bombardment of the starfall formation, but they could. Looking at the 3 mountain opening stage sea beasts flashing back and forth on the sea, Okuda Ba's face turned pale. Okuda Ba's face turned pale. The power of the starfall array was undeniable. However, there was a flaw, and that was that it needed time to accumulate power. Even if this time was compressed to an extremely short amount of time. It was so short that most of the sea beasts wouldn't be able to react in time. However, a flaw was still a flaw, and as long as it existed, it would be exploited one day. How is this possible? No matter how fast the mountain opening stage sea beasts are, they can't dodge it. This has never happened before. Okuda-ba shook his head in disbelief. In the past, the Starfall formation had never failed against the mountain opening stage sea beasts, but this time, it had failed 3 times in a row. It was simply too strange. Everyone else was also in disbelief. Only Lin-Yi secretly shook his head. In the past, the Starfall formation didn't fail because the mountain opening stage sea beasts didn't have a stronger being controlling them. This time, the situation was different. The 3 of them were able to dodge the attack because the being behind them had controlled them in advance to increase their speed. This guy can't do it. In his hands, the Starfall formation can't even unleash 10% of its power. What an idiot! The ghostly thing suddenly said disdainfully. The Starfall formation isn't its strongest power? Lin-Yi was instantly shocked. Could it be stronger than this? Could it be 10 times more powerful than the previous one? It's the strongest power, but it's not the strongest power. The ghostly thing said mysteriously. Senior, can you speak in a human language? Lin-Yi was speechless. In terms of the power of the light beam, this is of course the strongest. If it's stronger than this, then the sea beasts won't be able to survive. The ghostly thing laughed and said, "It's a pity that such a powerful thing fell into the hands of an idiot. No matter how powerful it is, it's useless if you can't hit your target. If it was controlled by an expert, even I would be afraid of this Starfall formation when I was at my peak. Unfortunately, it's controlled by an idiot. He can't even handle a few mountain opening stage sea beasts. If the designer is still alive, he's probably crying in the toilet." Why is that? Its charging time is indeed a very obvious flaw. As long as the opponent is strong enough and fast enough, it shouldn't be too difficult to notice it and avoid it in time, right? Lin-Yi couldn't help but feel strange. Flaw? Kid, listen carefully. In ancient times, the Starfall formation was known as the strongest formation with no flaws. It's just that no one knows how to use it now, so it's like a pearl covered in dust. The ghostly thing sighed. The strongest formation with no flaws? Why do you say that? Lin-Yi couldn't help but grin. There was clearly a charging time, so how did it become the strongest formation with no flaws? Kid, look at its astrolabe. Doesn't it look like a chessboard? The ghostly thing didn't answer. Lin-Yi heard it and looked at it carefully. He hadn't thought about it before, but now that the ghostly thing reminded him, he suddenly felt that it really was a chessboard. An extremely complicated chessboard. Chapter 4783. This was the equivalent of using chess skills to make up for the lack of time, and even made the Starfall matrix even more unpredictable. Lin-Yi nodded thoughtfully. So you're saying that the Starfall matrix can only be used to its full potential by a true chess master? That's right. It's said that the Starfall formation was invincible in the hands of its designer. Even the strongest person back then had to retreat. That's why it's known as the strongest killing formation. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been installed on a battleship and become the final trump card of an ultimate weapon, the ghostly thing said. While the 2 of them were communicating, Okuda-ba had suffered once again. He still hadn't given up on the idea of killing the 3 mountain opening stage sea beasts in one fell swoop. Unfortunately, the result was the same as before. He didn't even manage to kill a single hare. This result caused everyone's morale to drop to a freezing point. They knew that these 3 were just cannon fodder puppets, but after using all their skills, they realized that they couldn't even kill the opponent's cannon fodder puppets. How were they supposed to continue? Okuda-ba's face was ashen. It seemed like he had suffered a heavy blow. Even he, the captain, was in such a state, let alone the others. A feeling of despair spread from the command room to every cabin. What was even worse was that everyone had begun to blame each other. If they had activated the 10,000-mile array and escaped, they would have had at least a 30% chance of survival. But now, they didn't even have a 10% chance. Why don't you let me try? Lin-Yi suddenly stood up. Everyone was shocked. Okuda-ba frowned and looked at him. He snorted and said, "Do you know what this is? A layman wants to try the Starfall formation?" "I'm indeed a layman, but after seeing your performance just now, I don't think it's any worse than you, Lin said calmly. What did you say? Okuda was already in a bad mood, and now he was enraged. His opinion of Lin was completely reversed. He had some ability, but this kid was too much of a braggart. I said, since I can't escape death, why don't you let me try? Maybe there's a chance? Lin looked straight at Okuda. This. Okuda hesitated. He didn't believe that Lin could control the starfall formation. However, when he thought about how Lin could discover the sea beasts in advance and tell that there was a mastermind behind it, Okuda couldn't help but feel lucky. What if this guy could really do it? Everyone else looked at Okuda. Since things had already come to this, there was no point in complaining anymore. They had no other choice but to make a desperate attempt. Before Okuda could say anything, Lin walked towards the astrolabe. Okuda moved aside subconsciously, and before he could react, Lin Yi's hand was already in the astrolabe. Captain, what did you say? The voices of the first mate and the other crew members rang out from the sound transmission array. Okuda looked at Lin and gritted his teeth. Listen to him. As soon as he said that, a beam of starfall of the starfall formation landed on the sea in front of them. Okuda and the others who had just decided to believe in Lin were stunned. What was going on? The 3 mountain opening stage sea beasts were a few miles away, and the area covered by the light beam was empty. There was nothing at all, not even a profound ascending stage sea beast. What the hell was this guy doing? Lin didn't wait for them to ask anything as he shot down 3 more pillars of light, but there was still nothing. Okuda couldn't take it anymore and roared, "Get out of the way if you don't know how to do it, stop being a hindrance. If you don't understand, then don't talk nonsense. If you want to live, then watch carefully." Lin didn't move. Okuda's eyelids couldn't help but twitch. His opponent's terrifying aura made his heart skip a beat. He felt as if he had encountered a supermaster who was far above him. However, when he looked again, he found that there was no difference from before. He was clearly just a mid-nascent soul brat. Was it because he was under too much pressure? Okuda shook his head. At this moment, Lin used another 3 beams of starfall of the starfall formation. The result was the same as before. Everyone was about to go crazy. Every single starfall light pillar consumed a large amount of spiritual energy, and in the blink of an eye, this brat had created a total of 7 light pillars. At this rate, they wouldn't even be able to last for 6 hours. Their reserves of spiritual energy would definitely be exhausted in advance. Not only did everyone look at each other speechlessly, even the 3 mountain opening stage sea beasts outside were baffled. After waiting for a while and seeing that there was no movement, they each launched a frenzied attack at the ancient warship. Because the starfall spell had already absorbed a large amount of spiritual chi, the strength of the defensive spell was far less than before. In addition, the crazy attacks of the 3 mountain opening stage sea beasts were no small matter. The battleship was actually shaking back and forth under the attacks. The defensive spell was about to be completely destroyed, and the situation was in danger. Including Okuda, everyone's faces turned pale. They couldn't care less about telling Lin to give way. They could only shout, "Release the starfall formation. If you don't release it, we'll die." Unexpectedly, Lin turned to look at them. He smiled calmly and said, "The master hasn't shown himself yet. What's the rush?" Okuda and the others were furious. How could this kid still be in the mood to act cool at a time like this? Did he think this was a joke? At this moment, the warship shook violently. It tilted so much that it almost capsized. Fortunately, the pilot reacted fast enough and adjusted the direction in time. Only then did they barely escape the disaster. Everyone was stunned. Although the attacks of the 3 mountain opening stage sea beasts were terrifying, it wasn't enough to tilt the warship to such an extent before the defense was destroyed. Could it be? At this moment, someone suddenly shouted, "Look!" Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. There was a magnificent mountain range a few miles away. Of course, it wasn't a real mountain range. It was a super sea beast that was as majestic as a humpback whale. The difference was that the humpback whale was heavy and clumsy, but this one was slender and agile. All they could see was pitch black. It was covered in dense scales. In addition to its slender body, the first impression this sea beast gave everyone was that it was a giant sea snake. However, when it floated up and revealed more of its ferocious body, this thought was immediately dispelled. Sea King Dragon? This name appeared in Lin Yi's mind subconsciously when he saw the dense sawtooth of this super sea beast and the 4 huge and powerful fins on both sides of it. You recognize it? The ghost was shocked. Chapter 4784. The name is very close, but it's not a Sea King dragon. It's a sea dragon, the creature closest to the sea god in the legends, the ghostly thing explained. Sea dragon? Lin Yi only realized then. No wonder this thing said that it was related to him. They were both dragons, but one was a spirit beast and the other was a sea beast. Their blood relationship was a bit too far apart, and they basically had nothing to do with each other. Sea dragon. It's a sea dragon. We actually encountered a sea dragon. Okuda-ba suddenly yelled in excitement as he started to gesticulate incoherently. This was the legendary god of the sea. It was practically the totem of the boundless sea. He had been sailing the seas for more than 300 years, but he had never seen it before. The others were also shocked. If there was a sea beast that they talked about the most, it would definitely be the sea dragon, because there were too many legends related to the sea dragon. They could not even talk about it for 3 days and 3 nights. They did not expect to see a living sea dragon with their own eyes today. However, before everyone could calm down from their excitement, the sea dragon with the sea god's halo on its head charged at them again. With a loud bang, the warship flipped over again. After barely stabilizing the body of the ship, the excited people felt like a bucket of ice water had been poured over their heads. The defense formation had been destroyed. Everyone, including Okuda Dam, turned pale with fright when they saw the halo of the defensive formation vanish. Only now did they react. Not only was it not their good fortune to see a legendary super sea beast like the sea dragon, but it was also their misfortune. Without the protection of the defensive formation, everyone would die here. There was no chance of survival. At that moment, in the midst of the chaos, Lin Yi suddenly gathered his true chi and shouted, "Starfall formation, release!" Fortunately, the crew members did not completely lose their composure. After hearing Lin Yi's order, they subconsciously responded. In an instant, 7 starfall pillars fell from the sky, and each of them was in the same position as the 7 that had missed before. Only now did Lin Yi realize that repeatedly using the starfall light pillar at the same location would greatly shorten the charging time by more than 100 times. With this kind of speed, even stronger existences would not be able to react, let alone those in the mountain opening stage. However, the opponent was still a sea dragon with the title of Sea God. Its instantaneous reaction speed still caused Lin Yi to break out in a cold sweat. It had actually managed to dodge 6 of the starfall light pillars. In the end, it had no choice but to take the last one. If not for the last one, everything would have been for naught. Then, the fate that awaited everyone would have been a tragic death. Fortunately, the chess piece had not missed its target. This was the work of the ghostly creature. He had already calculated all of the sea dragon's escape routes when he placed his chess pieces in these 7 spots. One of the 7 starfall pillars would definitely be hit. The legendary existence closest to the sea god had still been tricked by this distant relative of his. There was a deafening roar. After the sea dragon was hit by the starfall light pillar, it was not blasted into pieces like the humpback whale. Instead, it only had a large hole in its body. It was not a light injury. After suffering such a huge loss, the sea dragon did not run away. Instead, it became even more ferocious and wanted to attack the warship again. It only needed one strike to kill everyone here. Unfortunately, Lin Yi was not going to give it the chance. Starfall formation, release again. Another 7 starfall light pillars were fired. This time, the sea dragon had another large hole in its body. This time, it did not dare to act rashly. It let out a shrill roar and chose to turn and flee. However, Lin had no intention of letting it go. He immediately launched another series of starfall light pillars in hot pursuit. The world fell silent. It's dead. Okuda-ba swallowed his saliva with difficulty as he looked ahead. It was a pity that the sea in front of him had already been dyed with murky blood. He could not see anything under the sea. After the sea dragon was hit by the last starfall light pillar, it did not surface again. Perhaps it had already been blasted into pieces. As for the 3 mountain opening stage sea beasts, they had already been blasted into smithereens by the previous round of bombardment. Not even their bones were left. What do you think? Lin-Yi looked at him non-committally. He turned around and walked to Huo-Yuri's side. He let out a long breath and said, "It's fine now. Let's go back." After hearing what Lin-Yi said, the others finally burst into an earth-shattering cheer. Anyone who had been in front of the gates of hell for such a long time would be out of breath. Their heartstrings were almost broken. Now that they had finally recovered, it was a joyous occasion to have a new lease on life. Seeing Lin-Yi and Huo-Yuri leave, Okuda-ba could not help but have a complicated expression. He wanted to say something, but he did not know what to say. He could only stand there in a daze. "Senior Ghost, is that sea dragon really dead?" Lin-Yi could not help but ask in his mind as he and Huo-Yuri returned to the living quarters of the East Continent's disciples. Not only was Okuda-ba puzzled by this question, but he himself was also uncertain. "I already said that it was my distant relative. How could I kill it?" The ghost laughed. Even he felt guilty for saying this. He knew that it was a distant relative, yet he still schemed against it. He could only add, it was only seriously injured and escaped. Huh. Won't it make a comeback? Lin-Yi was shocked. The sky was about to brighten, and the ancient battleship that had exhausted its spiritual energy was completely defenseless. It could not even withstand a casual attack from it. That won't be the case. It's not that easy to recover from its injuries. After suffering such a huge loss, it won't dare to cause trouble for a short period of time. However, it's hard to say in the future, said the ghost. In the future? It has nothing to do with me in the future. I don't care what happens after I get off the ship. Lin-Yi laughed nonchalantly. He then asked, "Oh yes, I was just wondering why this sea dragon would cause trouble for us. Did Okuda-ba and the others offend it before? It doesn't seem like it. It looks like it's their first time seeing it. Hee, they don't need to cause trouble. Actually, the existence of this ancient battleship is already irreconcilable to the sea dragon." The ghost laughed. "Why do you say that?" Lin-Yi asked curiously. "A ship needs its keel. Do you know what the keel of an ancient battleship is made of?" The ghost asked instead of answering. Lin-Yi was stunned for a moment. This time, he suddenly reacted. Could it be the sea dragon? That's right. That's the reason. If you were the sea dragon and saw a battleship flying over your head, how would you feel? Perhaps it would be even more extreme. Lin-Yi laughed and shook his head. Chapter 4785. I'm fine. Lin-Yi chuckled. Seeing that Ning Xuefei was safe and sound, he felt much more at ease. The reason why he had rushed back was to see Ning Xuefei, fearing that something might have gone wrong in the chaos earlier. However, after seeing Lu Ziyu who had followed closely behind him, he knew that he had been worrying too much. Ning Xuefei and Lu Ziyu were astonished, especially when they heard about the appearance of the sea dragon. Their eyes lit up, and Lu Ziyu was no exception. It seemed that this creature, which was closest to the sea god, was indeed extraordinary. Everyone had heard of its legends. As Lin-Yi and the others were talking, there was a commotion in the crowd. Ba-Okuda had arrived. After looking at Lin-Yi with a complicated expression, Okuda-ba didn't immediately approach him. Instead, he faced the crowd and said, "Everyone, because of the crisis just now, our battleship has consumed all of its reserve spiritual chi, so we can't continue sailing for the time being. We can only wait for the spiritual chi to be replenished. During this time, you must not act on your own. Without the startled beast array, there is no defensive array. I believe I don't need to explain the dangers involved." Then what should we do? Everyone's faces turned pale with fright. They had been staying in the relatively isolated living area all this time, so they didn't have a clear understanding of the situation outside. As for the Starfall Array, the 10,000-kilometer array, and the like, they had never even heard of them. They only knew that they had been attacked by a group of super sea beasts, but they had never thought that the battle would be so precarious. The ancient warship was originally a giant that galloped across the sea. In everyone's hearts, no sea beasts could pose a fatal threat to them. But now, they were suddenly told that they had completely exhausted all their spiritual energy. Wouldn't they be doomed if they continued to drift on the sea? Everyone, don't worry too much. As long as we can hold on for a day and a night, the warship will be able to replenish its spiritual energy and set sail again. Although there are threats outside, so many super sea beasts have died this time. For the time being, there shouldn't be anything that dares to come close. So, it's still relatively safe. There's no need to panic. Hearing this, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. As long as they persevered for a day and a night, they would be able to resume their journey. That should not be a problem. But for safety's sake, we must double our vigilance during this period. Vice Dean Liu, you and I are the strongest on this ship, so we'll have to work a bit harder, Okudaba said. It's part of my duty, no problem, Liu Ziyu immediately agreed. Alright, if there's nothing else, let's disperse. Okudaba nodded and walked towards Lin Yi under everyone's watchful eyes. He hesitated for a moment before saying, Young hero Lin, what happened before was purely a misunderstanding. What we need the most right now is a lookout. Without waiting for him to finish, Lin Yi directly waved his hand and refused, I don't want to do it. Since you guys don't listen to me, what's the use of being a lookout? Forget it, save your energy. Hearing that, Okudaba's face darkened. However, he wasn't a fool. The treasure ship incident on the North Island could be regarded as a groundless rumor, but he had seen it with his own eyes today. This Lin Yi's sailing talent was something he had never seen before in his life. Comparisons were odious, and comparisons were odious. Today, he had truly witnessed what it meant to be a super genius born for the sea. One must know that the real lookout on his ship was a veteran who was even more experienced than him. His rich experience was well known in the navigation world. Now, his status and prestige on the ship was only slightly lower than that of the captain. Even the vice captain and the chief officer couldn't compare to him. However, such an experienced senior in the navigation world hadn't been able to discover the horde of sea beasts in time. Instead, Lin Yi had discovered it long ago. If he had followed Lin Yi's warning, there wouldn't have been so many problems afterward, and they wouldn't have been in such a precarious situation. That was not all. After that, Lin Yi's performance in taking over the Starfall formation during the crisis made all the crew members, including Okudaba, dumbfounded and even shocked. When they were still having a headache over the 3 mountain opening stage sea beasts, Lin Yi had directly targeted the mastermind behind the scenes. They hadn't even found the shadow of the sea dragon, but Lin Yi had already begun to set up a plan to deal with it. Thinking of how he reprimanded Lin Yi for making trouble, Okudaba couldn't help but blush. As the captain of a warship, it was really embarrassing that he couldn't even see through Lin Yi's plan. Now that he thought about it, the Starfall formation was a huge fucking shame in the hands of the real captain. He couldn't even deal with a few mountain opening stage sea beasts. On the other hand, Lin Yi could even deal with the sea dragon easily. The gap between them wasn't just a little bit, it was like a world of difference. At this time, the disciples of the East Continent who didn't know the inside story were still watching the show. Especially Ren Zhongyuan and the others, they all had a gloating expression on their faces. Lin Yi actually dared to talk to Okudaba in this tone. Did he really think that everyone would spoil him in West Island? He even said that he wasn't a lookout anymore. Did he think that he could quit this kind of job just because he wanted to? What an idiot who didn't know what was good for him. Until now, Ren Zhongyuan still hadn't heard the change in Okudaba's tone. He was still immersed in his dream of sending Lin Yi into the fire pit. He thought that Okudaba deliberately said this in front of everyone to emphasize the importance of being a lookout so that he could punish Lin Yi later. However, what Okudaba said next made Ren Zhongyuan and the others' jaws drop. Young hero Lin, I was really careless about what happened before. I sincerely apologize to you for that. This time, not only was everyone dumbfounded, but Lu Ziyu and the others also looked at each other. Even Lin Yi himself couldn't help but feel a little surprised. He really didn't expect this high and mighty captain to be willing to put down his pride and take the initiative to apologize to him in front of so many people. To be honest, I also regret it now. If I had listened to young hero Lin's warning at the first instance, so many things wouldn't have happened. It's just that I felt that there was no danger at the time, and I thought that you were a newbie with insufficient experience, so I took it for granted and didn't believe you. I didn't expect things to turn out like this in the end. It really makes me feel ashamed. Okudaba's tone was quite sincere. Lin Yi couldn't help but think highly of this person. He was able to take things in stride and was worthy of being the captain of a ship. Although he seemed like a complete bastard when he stood up for Ren Zhongyuan previously, now it seemed that this person wasn't completely useless and could be considered a top figure. Chapter 4786. No matter what, I have to thank young hero Lin on behalf of everyone on this ship for saving our lives. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be standing here safe and sound. Okuda bowed deeply to Lin. Everyone's eyes widened as if they'd just seen a ghost. The captain was supposed to stand up for Ren Zhongyuan and teach Lin Yi a lesson. How did things turn out like this all of a sudden? Also, what did he mean by thanking Lin Yi for saving his life on behalf of everyone else? What in the world had just happened? Everyone was confused. Ren Zhongyuan looked at Okuda with his mouth agape. He couldn't help but want to jump out and ask for an explanation. However, before he could open his mouth, Uncle Okuda shot him a stern look, making him shut up. No need. We're all on the same boat. I'm just trying to protect myself. Lin Yi waved his hand. To be honest, if there were other ways to ensure the safety of Ning Xuefei and the others, with Okuda's previous actions, Lin Yi might not be willing to stand out and save the situation. Even if Lin Yi was willing, that thing might not be willing to help him out so wholeheartedly. After all, this was a sea dragon that was related to him. Who the hell would help a human fight against their own relatives, even if they were distant relatives that had nothing to do with each other? They still had a dragon in their name. Young hero Lin, you're too humble. No matter what, I have to thank you. Okuda was still very sincere. He invited, I also know that with young hero Lin's ability, it's really a waste of your talent to be a lookout. So, I'm now sincerely inviting you to join my ship in the name of the captain. With young hero Lin's sailing ability, I can't guarantee anything else, but I can promise you the position of vice captain in the future. There was an uproar. This matter was getting more and more confusing. It was fine if Okuda didn't think of ways to screw over Lin Yi, but why was he trying to rope in Lin Yi? He even put down his status as a corporal and offered the position of vice captain. Everyone was just watching the show, but Ren Zhongyuan was so shocked that his jaw was dislocated. He looked at Okuda Dam in disbelief. What was Uncle Okuda doing? Little did he know that Okudaba was only willing to help him deal with Lin Yi because he was giving his father face. However, after last night's battle, Lin Yi's value was far above his father's. If he didn't quickly change his attitude, it would only prove that Okudaba was a fool. For a person like Okudaba who was used to gallop on the sea, a talented sailing master was absolutely more important than anything else. What 7th-level alchemist could not compare to him at all? This was the trump card that could allow him to sit back and relax at sea. Okuda Dam's invitation. Even Lin Yi couldn't help but be moved. The position of vice captain was basically on the same level as the vice dean of East Continent College. In order to win him over, the other party didn't hesitate to spend a lot of money. But as much as he was moved, Lin Yi had never planned on doing something like this. Naturally, he wouldn't accept an invitation like this. He shook his head faintly. I'm sorry, but I'm not interested in this. Please find someone else, Captain. Okudaba's expression suddenly froze. Even if the other party was the prince consort of West Island with a promising future, he was still a master in the middle stage of nascent soul after all. Offering such a high-level position as vice captain was already very sincere, but he didn't expect it to be rejected without hesitation. Sure enough, it was not so easy to invite a master. In that case, I won't force you. Okudaba had to smile bitterly. Although he was very disappointed, he also knew that people like Lin Yi had to be on good terms with as many ways as possible. In this way, there might be a chance in the future. Otherwise, if he continued to offend people like this, he would only make himself an unimaginably strong enemy. With Lin Yi's amazing performance in the battle last night, he now couldn't help but start to doubt Lin Yi's background. At least one thing was for sure, this guy was not as simple as the Prince Consort of West Island or a disciple of North Island. There must be a more powerful and terrifying background behind him. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to master the starfall formation so skillfully. After all, this kind of thing was hard to come by, whether it was in West Island or North Island. However, Okuda-ba didn't give up so easily. Instead, he suggested, "This time, my ship's vitality is greatly damaged. If there's no powerful person to personally control it, there may be more trouble on the way. So I have a presumptuous request, and I hope young Master Lin will consider it seriously." Just say it. Lin Yi frowned slightly. He had changed a lot about this guy now. At least he didn't hate him as much as before. If it wasn't an outrageous request, it wouldn't be a problem to agree. After all, they were still on this warship. If something went wrong, they would definitely be in trouble. "I want to invite young Master Lin to control this warship together. Don't worry, this time there won't be a mistake like before. All the crew members on this warship will carefully follow young Master Lin's every order. I wonder if young Master Lin can help me?" Okuda-ba paused, then added, "Of course, this needs a good reason. An honorary vice-captain position should be just right. Young Master Lin, don't worry, this won't affect anything else you do. If you want to go, just go. There's no need to be entangled." "You want me to control this warship together?" Lin Yi's eyes lit up when he heard that. He didn't care about the honorary vice-captain position at all, but he was very interested in the opportunity to control an ancient warship of this scale. Even if one didn't have a sailor's dream of riding the sea, as long as one was a man, they would be instinctively interested in these things. Guns, cannons, carriages, horses, especially a super warship that represented the ultimate power. This was something that was destined in their bones. Lin Yi was no exception. As an assassin, Lin Yi had piloted planes and cannons in the mortal world, but he had never piloted a warship before. Especially after personally controlling a super-killing formation like the Starfall Matrix, Lin Yi actually had a tendency to love it so much that he couldn't bear to part with it. Even though he had only listened to the ghost's orders and played the chess pieces, using the Starfall Matrix to fight against a super overlord of the sea like the Sea Dragon, and even beat it until it ran away in panic. That feeling was extremely satisfying, and he couldn't help but feel intoxicated. Chapter 4787. "Okay, I can promise you that, but I have a condition." Lin Yi's tone was still calm. "Young hero Lin, please say it." Okuda-ba quickly said, "That guy is too much of an eyesore. Let him stay in his room. Don't let me see him, it's annoying." Lin Yi pointed in the direction of Ren Zhongyuan. "Someone, send Ren Zhongyuan back to his room. He is not allowed to step out of his room until we reach East Continent." Okuda-ba immediately gave the order without hesitation. This kind of condition was not a loss to him at all. Even if he put Ren Zhongyuan in confinement, Ren Zhongyuan's father would not dare to fall out with him because of such a small matter. Everything would be the same and there would be no change at all. "Uncle Okuda, don't. You are good friends with my father. How can you help an outsider?" Ren Zhongyuan immediately shouted in exasperation. He never would have thought that this would happen. Not only did Okuda-ba not help to deal with Lin Yi, but he also wanted to please Lin Yi to deal with him. What the hell was this? "Noisy! What are you waiting for?" Okuda-ba frowned. Immediately, the crew guards came over and dragged Ren Zhongyuan away. Ren Zhongyuan could not use his true chi now. He was a complete cripple. He could not even struggle. He could only be dragged away like a dog. Everyone was dumbfounded by this scene. They were so shocked that they could not close their mouths for a long time. This time, they deeply understood two old sayings. One was the wheel of fortune, and the other was the flip of a book. Okuda-ba turned a deaf ear to Ren Zhongyuan's heart-wrenching scream and turned to look at Lin Yi with a smile. Young hero Lin, is this okay? Lin Yi nodded. He had a better understanding of this guy. He was indeed capable, but he was also black-hearted and thick-skinned. He had to be careful when dealing with this kind of guy. Don't be fooled by his straightforward appearance. He could easily sell you out in the blink of an eye. Okuda-ba smiled in satisfaction. Although he did not succeed in getting Lin Yi on board this time, it was not unacceptable. It was just an honorary vice captain position. He did not even need to pay a salary to get a sailing expert. No matter how one looked at it, this deal was not a loss. Having become the honorary vice captain, Lin Yi's status on the warship instantly rose to a level where he was second only to one person and above tens of thousands of people. Even the original vice captain and first officer had to be polite to him, and the treatment he received was so high that even Lu Ziyu could not help but feel envious. She repeatedly sighed that people really could not be compared with each other. After an uneventful day, the warship once again set sail amidst the cheers of the crowd. Lin Yi wandered around the various important cabins when he had nothing to do. These were the things that interested him the most. In any case, he was the honorary vice captain. In order to rope him in, Okuda-ba had never stopped Lin. From the captain's point of view, if Lin Yi could control the starfall formation so well, what other secrets could there be? If they were to talk about secrets, the starfall formation was the core secret. Lin Yi knew much more than them. As for the lookout tower, Lin Yi did not go up there again. Okuda-ba only asked him to look after it when he was free. If there was any danger ahead, he did not even need to go up to the lookout tower to know. He could easily get people to avoid it in advance. He was much more accurate and timely than the original veteran lookout. After doing this a few times, the reputation of being a genius navigator spread like wildfire. Lin Yi had inadvertently become a rising star in the world of navigation. He had become a rising star in the world of navigation. Ning Shuefei was even happier than Lin Yi about Lin Yi's extraordinary treatment. Her face was filled with pride. This was not simply a wife taking pride in her husband. She was much more interested in this ancient warship than Lin. It was a good opportunity for her to openly learn from him and make preparations for the future. Hui Yudi, on the other hand, was rather helpless. Because Ning Shuefei had been following him everywhere, she no longer had the chance to spend time alone with Lin. As for the bold idea that she had on the lookout tower, she did not even dare to think about it. She could only bury it deep in her heart for the time being. After a whole month at sea, the warship finally entered the legendary Yellow Sea of the East Continent. Although it had only been a few years since he came to the Heavenly Island, Lin Yi could be considered to have seen a lot. Not only the North Island, but also the Middle Island, the South Island, and the West Island. However, seeing the scene in front of him this time, he could not help but be shocked. Big. Very big. This was Lin Yi's first reaction when he saw the Yellow Sea of the East Continent. The North and West Islands docks were many times smaller than the one in front of him. This was a true superport that stretched as far as the eye could see. If it was only the size of the port, it would be fine. The key was that the ships parked in front of him were too spectacular. Looking from afar, more than half of them were treasure ships, and there were even a few huge warships parked among them. As for those ordinary ships, even if they were super ships with huge tonnage, they did not seem to be presentable in this place at all. They were simply like small fishing boats parked beside these giants of the sea. They would be too embarrassed to even greet people when they walked out. Treasure ships, warships, didn't they say that these things are very rare? Why are they everywhere here? Lin Yi could not help but swallow his saliva. Previously, he thought that owning a treasure ship was already very awesome. Now that he thought about it, he felt that he was too naive. He really had not seen the world. That's right. Not to mention ancient warships, even treasure ships are very rare strategic goods. It's just that more than 80% of the treasure ships of the 5 great heavenly islands are concentrated in the East Continent. That's why they look so similar. This kind of scene can never be seen in other places, Hui Yudi explained with a smile. I see. Lin Yi nodded. He could not help but praise in his heart. The East Continent was indeed worthy of being the largest and strongest island in the Heavenly Islands. Seeing it today, it really deserved its reputation. Accompanied by a low port call, the warship finally slowly approached the shore. Ren Zhongyuan, who had been confined for a whole month, was finally released. This time, he did not dare to come and find trouble. Now, even Okuda Dam was helping Lin. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that there was nothing he could do. He glared at Lin Yi and the others from afar. Their faces were full of resentment and unwillingness. Ren Zhongyuan, Yi Xiaotian, and the others could only resentfully disembark the ship and leave in a hurry. They did not even bid farewell to Huiyudi before disappearing into the crowd. They probably did not have the face to harass Huiyudi for the time being. Lin Yi and the others were more than happy to see this. These annoying guys all had extraordinary backgrounds. They could not kill them. Although they could make the other party suffer a loss by taking the initiative to approach them, they would inevitably be in a bad mood. What the eyes did not see, the heart did not grieve. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.